All right, I'm gonna edit the stream title again. We're gonna start getting some more chuds, okay? Trans women should compete against cis women. Boom. There we go. Now we just have to wait. We just have to wait for them. They come like flies to a turd. A golden turd made of good ideas and not bad ones. I hope your mods are ready. They always are. Rebel, 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 rebel. It's only 3 days, I'm fine. No, 3 days you start, like, your body starts dying, my dude. Okay. So we're gonna watch a video by one of my favorite social media activists, okay? Because she's really hot, and she's trans, and she's really cool, okay? Not Fallon Fox. No, you'll see. You'll see, guys. I'm trying to find the button I need to press. There we go. Riverboat Jack? No, it's not me. It's not me. All right. We're going to talk about transition and sports. Let's go and play.
My name is Caleb Ward. I went from ministry and the church to finally living my truth as a trans woman who is going to try out for the WNBA. And this is that story. I honestly don't remember the first time I picked up a basketball, but I do remember having one of those little tight goals, those plastic ones, and my mom would go out there and shoot around with me. I was probably like three or four. And I remember getting that first point where I was like, would run up and dunk on it, and I broke it and landed on my head. But that didn't deter me. Like, I loved it. I was so excited that I was able to do that. From there, I would sneak away into the inner city when I was young as 7, and I would play basketball. And it's just where I would go. Every day I was down, every day that the thoughts wouldn't leave my mind of how I felt inside. My earliest memories of really feeling like I wasn't this boy as everybody said I was when I was around 5 or 6. I remember in particular, it's probably a little graphic, but going to take a bath one day and just really not liking what was on my body. And I really wanted to take a knife and cut it off. It was just something that was telling me that this wasn't right. And as I got older and I was around more people, especially other girls, I was like, that's supposed to be me. And it wasn't necessarily playing with dolls or the dresses, because I'm still not very girly. I'm not very feminine. I don't wear a lot of makeup. I'd rather be on a basketball court. So it's hard to say what moment was really that trigger. It was just a feeling inside that told me who I was. It was difficult, feeling like you didn't belong or fit in. So it's a lot about putting on a front. I was an amazing actor for 30 years.
Gender dysphoria is no joke.
Especially as a kid, because kids are very intuitive. They pick up on things, which is why I really push so hard to sports. It's hard to really pinpoint something different about a jock. I guess how I related was just through sports, and then eventually through religion. I joined a youth group at church, found new friends, and every time the doors to the church were open, I was there. I was involved in every activity, every Bible study, just looking for answers. I found myself really praying hard for the feelings I had internally to go away. I felt a sense of belonging that I'd never felt before with the church and the family that I had. So I decided I wanted to give my life over and make that a career. Went to a Baptist college to pursue youth ministry or mission work. While I was doing
this is headed towards a tragic point. I can fucking see it. I'm lucky that I got out of this. Oh, my my camera isn't on, guys. Pro streamer, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me my camera wasn't on, guys? Come on now. Come on now. Thank you, stranger, bullet for breakfast. Thank you for telling me that my camera is not on. Good golly. There we go. Bloop. There we go. Whew. It's true. I'm pro. I'm pro. All right. Also, my chat's not. Oh, it's true. It's true. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry, guys. Look, I'm fixing it. Okay, I'm fixing it. Don't get angry with me. Okay. There we go. There we go. Now I gotta adjust the font size so you can see it, and it'll be all good. How will YouTube viewers know what chat is saying? No, stop using the rage emote. I'm fixing it, guys. I'm fixing it. Okay, there we go. It's fixed. It's fixed. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, we can continue now. Here we go, guys. There we go. My beautiful face is back on screen. You can stop panicking. Everything's fine.
Doing this mission work, I did find somebody that I fell in love with. They became my best friend, and I thought, this is just God's direction. Everything's going according to plan. I'm going to be this wonderful husband. I'll eventually be a father, and it'll all work out. We were together for 10 years, married for 7. The last 3 years of the marriage kind of started to fall apart. There was this division between my wife and I. I was kind of dressing on the side and trying to come to terms with myself and finding community online. She would almost catch me every time, and I would lie about it. So I remember her asking for a divorce, and it broke me. We were Christian, we were married, till death do you part. We weren't supposed to get divorced. So I begged her to stay. I said, we'll try counseling, whatever. She said it's not gonna happen. When she moved out, it's kind of when it really hit. I was done. I really was. I didn't want to put anybody else through what I felt like I put her through. I didn't feel my parents would accept or understand. So I thought, what else do I have to lose? I might as well just end it. So I had a bottle of pills that I was just gonna down. It was night and the house was dark, and I was just crying. My face was in my hands and in my pillow, and I was scared to do it, but I was ready. And my cats, they would never be near each other, but they both, in that moment, were climbing up on my lap, trying to push my hands away. They were licking the tears, one on each side. And it made it even harder because I was so ready. But I didn't want to lose my babies. Their attention and love to me is what really kind of kept me here. Not feeling alone was probably the most important part. I threw the bottle of pills away, and it was the next day that I started seeing a gender therapist, started hormones, and began living my truth. I called my dad, crying and really scared, because he always called me his bud and told me how proud he was of me, and I didn't want to lose that. And he assured me that he loved me no matter what. I was his kid, and that when I remarried one day, he would walk me down the aisle. So that was reassuring. It really helped move me forward. Now, when I called my mom, completely different story. She was pissed. So we had an argument. I told her if she couldn't use the right pronouns or call me by the right name, or even just say my child, that I wouldn't be able to talk to her. I'd have to kind of cut that out. And so we didn't talk for 2 years. And it wasn't until I visited again where she introduced me to her coworkers as her daughter. So it took some time, and I learned a lot through that sometimes we're not the only ones transitioning. Those around us, our friends and our family, are going through the same thing. It's a
Revolt Rise, I'm sorry. What haven't you done? Like, honestly, what haven't you done? CIA operative, tuna boat operator over here. What the heck? I'm constantly blown away by the stories you tell. And like, you can back it up too. You're like not all talk. Is Revolt one of the veteran mods? Yeah, Revolt Rise is one of the mods, and apparently Captain Tuna Boat. Wait, captaining the tuna boat. Were you captaining the tuna boat for the CIA? Can you confirm or deny? uh, y'all are great. I love you. I love you guys. Okay, all my mods. Anyway, let's continue with this. Okay.
A shock to them, and they kind of have to come along the journey with you, and it's not always going to be smooth sailing. I lost a lot of the friends initially that were connected to me and my ex-wife. We did go to a Baptist college together, so everybody really disagreed with who I am. My views of the church now are completely different. I still have this personal faith. The church today is problematic, and stepping away from it allowed me to see that more. They're completely missing the point. The Bible specifically talks a lot about love, and most people have no idea what that really means or how to provide that to other people. It took a little time to come out at work, but I was actually surprised. A lot of people were very accepting and supportive and pushed me a lot to break out of my comfort zone and stop being so shy and nervous. Moved to Dallas, Texas for a few years and met a lot of amazing people, which that turn led to LA because I really wanted to pursue my passion. In 2021, I want to try out for the WNBA. So unfortunately, a lot of leagues don't have guidelines that allow trans people to play. However, the International Olympic Committee does have a policy. If you are a trans woman, you have to be living in your true gender for at least a year. You have to be on HRT, hormone replacement, for at least a year. And you have to test consistently for 12 months at a testosterone level of 10 or below. They are changing that testosterone level to 5 or below because cisgender women usually range between 1 and 2. Some can produce higher. So for those who consistently say that it's not an even playing field when, say, a trans woman joins a cis woman's league. I transitioned 7 years ago.
Yes, she's very attractive and hot, and I'm very gay sometimes. Okay, I'm very bisexual. Mama Mia, you want to ask a really hot question, but I'm very open to opinions. How does Caitlyn Jenner get 2015 Woman of the Year? Well, for a lot of people in my parents' generation, for example, they literally have never, like, a lot of them think they have literally never seen or met a transgender person. So for them, having Caitlyn Jenner come out as trans and just like boldly do that was a huge deal, like a huge deal. And like I don't like Caitlyn Jenner because her politics are absolutely awful, but it's undeniable that her coming out did a whole lot, and it changed really the conversation that a lot of people have around transgender women in particular in the United States. So that's how she won Woman of the Year. Yeah, trans women are women. That's how I want to look when I'm a mom. This is how I want to look, just like, period. Holy shit. I could die happy if I looked like this. And I do not look anything like this. I agree with the idea of transgender being a huge deal, but she's still biologically a male. No. Also, like, yeah, it's not... And Archangel the Cobb, it's okay. Hold off on modding for this particular portion of the stream, just because, like, this is a stream about trans people, right? I want to educate. It's okay, Dezo. Please fall asleep. No, it's okay, Mamma Mia. But, like, she's not biologically a male, right? Like, she's a woman. She's just trans. And also, here, I really need to set this up, but does anyone have, like, the gender is not straightforward video, or to sex? There we go. Here we go. Here. I'm not going to watch it again on stream because we've literally watched it several times on stream now, but I will put it in chat, okay? And Mamma Mia, you can tuck this away and you can watch it later. There's not a gender command yet, but yeah, Mamma Mia. I just posted a link in chat, and basically, it explains that the biology behind gender is actually far more complicated than we understand it, and or sorry, the biology of sex is far more complicated than we currently understand it. And on top of that, gender is not binary either. So when we talk about Woman of the Year, we're not talking about we're not talking about someone who has a we're not talking about like a man with a penis who's is man of the year. No, we're talking about something else, right? Like Woman of the Year awards aren't given and like people like marvel at their at their uterus, right? Like no, we're talking about Woman of the Year. We're talking about the social construction of gender. So like this is why Caitlyn Jenner can win Woman of the Year even though she's trans. And I'm not saying there are no physiological differences between like a trans woman and a cis woman. All I'm saying is that one is trans and one is cis, but they are both women. Yeah. So she can win Woman of the Year because she is a woman. She's just a trans woman. But biologically, Miss Jenner still had male genitalia. I'm not sure at that point, but like it's also just kind of like irrelevant, right? Like, do you ask people on the street like what their genitals are before you're like, hey, you're a woman, right? Or hey, you're a man, right? Do you need to like pull down their pants to like inspect their genitals? I don't think so, right? So it's kind of irrelevant what their actual genital situation was. Um, yeah, technically there was a law passed in 1800 that in order to be named Woman of the Year, you have to pull down your skirt and let someone inspect your vulva. It's true. It's true. Um, Vicious Varga, thank you very much for hitting that follow button. I appreciate it. And it's okay, Mamma Mia. We've just had there are an awful lot of bad faith actors out there, especially when it comes to this issue. I just try and be like a really open platform where people can discuss it. But like I also have a lot of trans people in my community who have far less patience than I do, and my mods typically mod in their best interests. Because oftentimes the like a lot of trans people want to get away from like transphobia. Yeah. I'm glad you understand, okay? It can be a touchy subject. Yes. True. Um so like yeah, it's gender is a spectrum and so is biological sex as well. So yeah, bookmark that link and go watch it later after I'm done streaming. It's pretty useful. Um, and I'm actually here. You know what? Nightbot.tv. I'm gonna make the command live. Okay. So you know that it's there. Okay. Here we go. Gender, and I will update it later with additional links and messages for the social end of gender. Here, you know what? We'll have a command for sex and we'll have a command for gender. How about that? There we go. Okay. You guys now have the sex command. There you go. There you go. We have the sex command. I think that will be helpful for all of you, okay? I'll work on the gender command. I need to find I need to find a good resource for clearly explaining gender to people. That'll be, and I'll add the gender command, okay? If you ever list that, I'm positive many will be disappointed. Yeah, maybe. Please don't spam the sex command. Do I really have to like go into Nightbot and like have it be like a long break before anyone can use the sex command? Oh, great. I could send you a pic of me scrunching my junk and one where I don't. No, please don't. Please don't send me pictures of your junk. Uh, it's Anyway, we're gonna finish this video with this very hot woman who plays basketball.
Don't produce testosterone. I lost a lot of muscle mass, so if I were to compete against men now, especially on a professional level, I would just get demolished and thrown around the court like a rag doll. When it comes to trans people in sports, it honestly breaks down to almost a case-by-case scenario. Because there are requirements of living in your gender for a year and having been on HRT for a year. So as long as those things are in place, I would say trans people should be allowed to play the sport of their choosing in the gender that matches their identity. I have no problems hearing opposing views because it's important, it's a dialogue. Sports is about community, it's about connecting, it's about not feeling isolated and alone. It provides this sense of belonging. And so everywhere from little kids all the way up to adults, we need that. If I'm honest, I have a better chance of winning the lottery while being struck by lightning. And I say that not because of my skill level, but I'm 37. So by the time I try out, I'll be 39, so not exactly young. And I've blown out a knee, I've damaged my back, I've had concussions. So my body may not let me play, but it's not the only goal I have. If I don't get to make it, if I can create the policy that allows other people to follow their dreams, that's a win. When I grew up, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media.
Yeah, she looks amazing.
There was no trans representation on TV. For as long as I could remember, I felt like there was just something wrong with me. I was a freak. So now, seeing so many people living their lives out and proud, that means everything. I have people all over, probably more or less the Midwest and the South, who reach out, who understand my story because they're married or they're in a relationship, they're in the church, they have kids, and they feel trapped. So I get to help provide that vision of what life can be if they just allow themselves to be. For me, life is just beautiful when you aren't having to hide who you are. So I can say the biggest difference between before and now is I'm free. If I could talk to my younger self, I would tell that little kid that it's okay. You may not understand everything now. You may feel afraid and alone, but I promise you, you're not. Life can be beautiful. It can be worth living. You can make friends. You don't have to be alone. And you'd be surprised at how many people will actually accept you and love you as who you are. So you have to let go of that self-hate because you think it's going to come from people outside, and it's not going to. Not the way you think. Most of that comes from yourself, so you have to let that go. Breathe.
True.
And let yourself be.
Hell yeah. This was great. I enjoyed this video quite a bit. I'm glad I watched it. Alright. So, let's take a look at some studies. Let's take a look at some studies. Let's take a look at some studies. Because a lot of you need to look at them. Wait, where did I put the studies? Where are they at? Here we go. Alright. Alright. Here, I'm gonna just refresh a bunch of these pages so we can look at them. Boom, 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 boom. Alright. So, here we go. Okay. So, let's see. Can I ask when you became aware of your gender and transitioned? Basically, I became aware of my gender largely, I was aware of it for a very long time, but I did not know. I didn't have the vocabulary to describe what my situation was, right? So I couldn't really put into words what I was until I was in college. So I was in my 20s. And then it took me several years to kind of accept that that I was trans, and then it took me a couple more years to actually start taking hormones. Also, Bullets for Breakfast, thank you very much for hitting that follow button. I very much appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy your time here. So I started taking hormones when I was 26. So there you go, and I've been on them for almost 3 years. It's getting up there. Still got a lot of puberty left in me though. All right. So what we're looking at here is basically the Louis J. G. Gurin and Mathis. There's a J in there. I'm just gonna say Mathis C. M. Bunk study. Yeah, of course. I'm very open about myself. You know, I spent a very long time being scared and not talking about it, and I'm done doing that. I'm myself, and I'm happy to use my platform to talk about it. So the Gurin and Bunk study is basically one of the really it's just bunk, yes, haha. But this is one of the really influential studies when it comes to trans people in sports, because there's not a whole lot of data available about trans people in sports. So to kind of understand why this is, people, you have to go back down to. I know this is going to be kind of cliched. You gotta go all the way. Archangel, be nice. But you got to go back to Nazi Germany, right? So the Weimar Republic was actually one of like the most interesting places for scientific research on the planet at the time, largely because it was a leading repository of all existing data on transgender people at the time. So, yeah, it always comes back to Nazi Germany. It was a leading repository for this knowledge. But then Hitler came into power, and you can kind of maybe discern what Hitler thought of transgender studies. All of those books got burned. So all of the research that had been done, all of the well, I'm sure they did have a lot of cross-dressing soldiers. A lot of fascists are very into femboys. A lot of fascists are into being able to kind of have that plausible deniability that they're not gay. They're just into femboys. It's not gay if you're into a femboy, right? A lot of fascists did that back in the day, and they still do it today. Like if you go on like 4chan or whatever, or Stormfront, you'll see a lot of these people like posing with femboys and stuff. I think there was like a famous picture of like Viktor Orban posing with a femboy. It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah, I mean, basically. Oh, wait, the films of Nazi book burnings were actually at the Clinic of Trans Studies? Riot Girl Callie, can you send me like any articles about that? I would love to read about it. But yeah, so like our understanding of transgender people was literally set back to like square zero after the Germans were through with it, right? So it hasn't been until relatively recently that transgender people have been a subject of study, because they largely just kind of weren't well thought of in the West, and weren't considered a big deal or a big section of study. And excuse me. Anyway, along comes Gurin and Bunk, and essentially they were like, hey, let's actually get some data on trans people when it comes to competitiveness. Um, I CMA Gruder. I don't know what you are saying. I'm sorry. Institute for Sexual Wissenschaft. I don't know what that means. But basically, um, Guren and Bunk were able to. Oh, that's the name of it. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Um, but Guren and Bunk basically assembled this study, and like they got part of the problem with trans people is that there's an extremely not very many of us. So a lot of the sample sizes used in these kinds of studies are extremely small as well. Um, oh, that was part of where they burned books at. Gotcha. Um, yeah, the Institute for Sexology. I gotcha. Um, yeah, so in this study they had 17 male to female, which again outdated terminology, but this was published in 2004, so we'll have to kind of roll with it for now. And you had 19 male to female, and that's only a subject size of like 36, so it's really not all that much here. Okay, but we'll kind of go down. I'm not super keen on all of this. We're gonna get lost in the scientific babble. Um, but here's kind of where they dissect it. Okay, so we'll look at this part. Um, it does look like the Institute for Sexual Witchcraft, which I'm all for. The physical changes resulting from cross-sex hormone administration in transsexuals have been reported in scientific publications. Administration of cross-sex hormone has a profound impact on physical features such as muscle mass and fat distribution, and on biochemical variables such as HB and IGF-1. These changes took place during the first year of administration of cross-sex hormones, with no further differences when measured 2 years later. This contrasts with pubertal viralization slash feminization, which is much more protracted. The difference in course of development could be due to the high doses of cross-sex hormones in transsexuals. Now, one thing to notice here is that um, a lot of the policies regarding transgender people have changed wildly in the relatively short time span between when this study was done and now. Because again, they took their data over the course of 3 years, right? Um, so essentially, um, oh, thank you, Riot Girl Callie. I appreciate it. Um,
Hi, hello.
yes, thank you very much. We can watch this in a bit. I'm excited to learn some more. Um, but essentially, there was a period of time where, yeah, this study was 2004. Um, so it's, you know, uh, the way trans people transitioned in the 90s and early 2000, different than how they transition today. You know, there are different variables, I guess. For example, I'm not entirely sure because I went through the results. I'm not entirely sure if there was effective like I'm not sure how effective their like testosterone repression was, but this is again, I'm we'll read through this, okay? We'll get through this discussion section. The pivotal question is this: can reassigned sexual transsexuals compete fairly with others of their new sex? Our data are limited and do not provide insight into all pertinent aspects. So this is one thing you will find throughout a lot of the studies when it regards like muscle mass or anything like that. It's that the data is limited and they need more information. In competitive sports, in all likelihood, small differences may be critical for winning or losing. Our analyses our analysis is not refined enough to detect these small differences, allowing only an approximation. As far as our data data allows conclusions, the answer for female to male is probably yes. So trans men. Provided the administration of testosterone has not generated and does not generate supraphysiological testosterone levels, as these levels and exercise induce a surplus in muscle mass over exercise time. For male to female, trans women, there is an element of arbitrariness. There is no conclusive evidence for or against, pro or con, that the prenatal, perinatal testosterone exposure of men has an impact on future physical traits. Androgen deprivation in trans women induces a loss of muscle area, but mean muscle area remained larger in reassigned trans women than in untreated trans men, though with an almost complete overlap. This overlap between trans women and trans men existed even before cross-sex hormones, although not as extensively as after treatment. In real life, there will always be an element of arbitrariness in the drawing of competitive lines. Different individuals are born with and develop postnatally different potentials. The caprices of genetics and postnatal development will make any form of competition intrinsically unfair at some level. In the studies of Bosson and colleagues, changes in muscle size correlated with testosterone dose and concentration. These correlations were established in groups of men receiving gradual doses of testosterone. It's really nice that this study from 2004 properly genders them. I appreciate that. Nevertheless, there was considerable heterogeneity in response to testosterone administration within each group of men receiving the same amount of testosterone. These individual differences in response to androgen administration might reflect differences in activity level, testosterone metabolism, and nutrition, or polymorphisms in androgen receptor myostatin, or other muscle growth regulators. I'm going to not even try and pronounce this. All genetically determined and inherently personal. The implication is that all men and women are not born equally endowed for competition in sports. Another consideration is that testosterone-related physical properties are not relevant to all types of sports. We may summarize as follows. Testosterone exposure has profound effects on muscle mass and strength, justifying the practice that men and women compete in sports in separate categories. The response to testosterone exposure in men is idiosyncratic. Similar plasma levels of testosterone do not produce similar effects on muscle mass and strength. The effects of cross-sex hormones in the dosages commonly used have reached their maximum effects after 1 year of administration. In spite of a large difference in testosterone exposure between men and women, there's a large overlap of muscle area between them. Androgen deprivation of men induces a loss of muscle area, further increasing this overlap with women. Therefore, depending on the levels of arbitrariness one wants to accept, it is justifiable that reassigned trans women compete with other women. So, basically, what this study is acknowledging is that different people, for various reasons, have different aptitudes for competitive sport, and there's really it's a justifiable position to have trans women compete with other women. So that is the finding of this study. It's one of the most influential studies in the field. But if you're not satisfied, we can go look at more. We can go look at more studies. We'll get to this one later. This is where we play the ominous music. Okay. We're going to go to sporting cultures and identities. Race times for transgender athletes. So, essentially, this is written by Joanna Harper for Providence Portland Medical Center in the United States. Yeah, we'll get the we'll get some more data here, okay? Let's see. Athletes historically been divided into male and female for the purpose of most sporting competitions, 2 components of biological sex, blah, 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 blah. Transgender people are those whose innate sense of gender or gender identity does not match their biological sex. Some transgender people seek gender reassignment. Such people have been termed transsexual, and although the term is descriptive, it is now often viewed unfavorably within the transgender community. Thank goodness this study was published in 2015, so a bit more recent. Let's see. Those who are satisfied with the gender assigned to them at birth can be described as cisgender. Let's see. Transgender athletes have sought to compete against other athletes on the basis of their reassigned gender rather than their biological sex. While there's been little resistance to the presence of transgender male athletes, sporting organizations were unwilling to allow transgender women to compete against cis women prior to the 21st century. It is notable that in the 1970s, Renee Richards, probably the best-known transgender athlete in history, sued in the United States court system in order to be allowed to play women's tennis. Okay. Yep. 2004 International Olympic Committee enacted the Stockholm Consensus, allowing transgender women to compete, largely as a result of the Guren study that we just went over. Let's see. Oh, wait. At the time of the Stockholm Consensus, there was no published scientific literature that would justify the inclusion of transgender women. Oh no, they did rely on the study. Okay. Awesome. Oh wait, no, they relied on one of the researchers. There we go. All right. So we just went over that study. Okay. So we're gonna get to one of the elements here that's going to be important for this study. Let's see. After 1 year of testosterone suppression, the subjects had testosterone levels below those of 46XX women and hemoglobin levels equal to those of, again, 46XX women, in this case, cis women. Hello, Vivova. All right. And yeah, red blood cell content is very important in endurance sports. Muscle mass differences between the two groups were cut in half. The height of the individual did not change. There's no additional data changes noted at 3 years. This study was not undertaken on athletes, nor did researchers directly measure any physical component of athleticism, such as strength, speed, explosiveness, and endurance. The authors concluded that it was reasonable to allow transgender women to compete against cisgender women after appropriate hormone therapy. All right. Let's see. Yeah. Notable that the Stockholm Consensus required 2 years of hormone therapy, while the published study noted there were no physical changes in the subjects after 1 year. By the way, I do kind of take issue with this because, like, my personal experience and the experience of many other trans women is that a lot of trans women do experience a lot of changes long after the first year, like for like a long time. The changes are just a little bit more subtle over time. Let's see. All right. Let's see. Many sports followed the lead of the Olympic Games. Let's see. Instead of acceptance, there's been a substantial amount of controversy. Those in favor of allowing transgender athletic participation inevitably point to the fact that every major sporting organization to look at the issues since 2004 has agreed to allow transgender women to compete against other women. Proponents will often suggest that science is on their side. All right. Yeah. However, the only existing published study related to transgender women in sport is the original one by Gorin and Bunk. I agree. This is a problem. This is a problem that there is not a ton of research on this topic. We should have more. Let's see. Lack of such a study should not come as a surprise. There are two major obstacles involving in compiling any study involving transgender athletes. The first problem is how to formulate a study to create a meaningful measurement of athletic performance, both before and after testosterone suppression. No methodology has been previously devised to make meaningful measurements. The second problem is to find study participants. There are few transgender athletes and even fewer who will want to be identified. In order to create a study, a small cohort of competitive transgender athletes must be found in one given sport. Fortunately, there is a mass participation in distance running throughout much of the world. All major cities hold road races with many thousands of runners, giving the sport a large base of adult competitors. Thus, in a sport of distance running is the obvious choice to find suitable candidates. Let's see. The IAAF amended its rules to allow anyone who's legally and hormonally female to compete in the women's category. Neat. Lists no requirement for surgical intervention or specific duration of hormone therapy. Does not require an endocrine evaluation. Okay, neat. IFC also adopted testosterone-based rule for eligibility of women's sport. Okay. All right. So, they basically are examining the race times here. So let's go down to the results. All right. Collectively, the 8 runners had much slower race times in the female gender than as males. Time differences were in fact so great that age-graded performances stayed virtually constant for the group. Table 1 through 4 summarize the data from all 8 runners over four frequently run race distances varying from 5K to the marathon. Not all 8 women submitted times for all 4 of these distances. Okay, so this is the data we got. There we go. Okay. These races were run over the same course within 3 years' time and represent the best comparison points. Racers compared over a long time period, more uncertainty associated with them, but both runner 2 and runner 6 reported stable training patterns over this time range. These races also helped confirm the age grading method for tracking progress of a runner over the course of a multi-year time frame. Runner 7 represented the biggest evaluation challenge. She raced as a 19-year-old male recreational runner, then resumed running years later as a female. She got serious about the sport after she resumed, doubled her training load, and dropped 10 kilograms of weight. Not surprisingly, she got faster. This improvement can be seen in the fact that her AG went from 60.5 at age 28 to 75.7 at age 31, both in female gender. This 15-point change in age grade was much larger than the 5-point change she experienced after transition from male to female. It is useful to compare times for the same runner over the different race courses and at different time periods. The 2 lower scores occurred on a hilly course at a period of average fitness for runner 6. The 2 higher scores were on flat courses at times of peak fitness. All right. Table 5 indicates the average AGs from all runners in each gender and the overall averages of all 8. Table 6 shows the highest AGs from each runner. Let's see. All right. Let's get to the discussion. The majority of scientists believe testosterone is primarily responsible for the difference in athletic results between the sexes. Let's see. Although there are dissenters, there have been multiple studies on men's and women's testosterone levels with some variation in results, but a typical set of values would be as follows. Okay, you can look at that. Transgender women who have undertaken testosterone suppression change from normal male testosterone levels to normal female levels. In fact, after surgery, their testosterone levels are below the mean for cis women. Largely as a result of their vastly reduced testosterone levels, transgender women lose strength, speed, and virtually every other component of athletic ability. Since this study looks at endurance capabilities of athletes both pre- and post-testosterone suppression, it is of significant interest to look at the hematocrit, or hemoglobin levels of transgender women. 1 year after testosterone suppression, hemoglobin levels in transgender women fell from 9.3 mmol. I don't know what that measurement stands for, to 8.0. The latter number is statistically identical to the mean hemoglobin level for cisgender women. The reduction of testosterone and hemoglobin levels of transgender women after transition would suggest the endurance capabilities of transgender women athletes should be similar to those of cis women. The difficulty of finding suitable subjects is underscored by the fact it took 7 years to amass data from 8 participants. The times submitted by the 8 runners were self-selected and self-reported. Self-reporting by the subjects certainly affects the strength of the findings, as mentioned previously. Almost half the race times were double-checked by the author for accuracy. None of the subjects incorrectly reported any result. Let's see. Collectively, the 8 runners were much slower in the female gender. Slow enough, in fact, that their age-graded performances were almost identical to their male AGs. Wait, what does the AG stand for? I've been saying it for a while here. Oh, age grade. Duh. Yep, okay. Age grading is a method of comparing performance of athletes of all ages and both sexes. For running events, the athlete's race time is compared to the fastest time ever run by a person of that age and sex, or the age standard. The resultant age grade percentage is obtained by the following formula. All time is measured in seconds. Okay. Okay. Female. Oh, okay. Gotcha. So there are different formulas for different age gradings. So a female runner who has an AG, an age grading of 70, does not mean that she ran the same as well as a male runner who had an AG of 70. Gotcha. Also, TA Zone 21, thank you very much for the follow. GSU Gambit, thank you very much for the follow as well. I appreciate that very much. And I hope you enjoy whatever time you spend on this channel, okay? What's up? We're just going over some studies about trans women in sports. Yeah, let's keep looking here, okay? So, basically, if you have an AG that is roughly the same as between the two genders, it means that these trans women are roughly running within the same performance category as cis women. That's basically what this means, okay? So, let's see. Collectively, the 8 runners were much slower in the female gender, slow enough, in fact, that their age-graded performances were almost identical to their male AGs, which means they were running very closely, if not identically, to how cis women would run. 2 of the runners had higher average AGs in male gender than in female gender, while 1 runner had higher female AGs than male ones. The change in the age grades of these runners mirrored changes in their training habits. After transition, runner 4 began to experience a significant number of injuries, which prevented her from training as rigorously as she previously had. It is not surprising that her results got worse as time went on. Okay, going more into the different individual stories. We got a couple runners who kind of gave up or faltered in their training. You had another one who really became a great runner after transitioning. And then you had some steady runners. So you had a good selection in here. And let's see. All right. CMA Gruder, are you suggesting that we look at powerlifting because you really want to highlight that one powerlifter that Blair White was like, hey, she's competing against cis women. She's really big and muscular, when that wasn't actually the case? Is that why you want us to look at that one? I'm just asking out of curiosity. Okay. Let's see. Since training loads vary over time for all runners, the author believes the highest age grade might be the best comparison of male versus female athletic potential, but whether one uses average or highest age grades, the subjects scored statistically identical age grades both as male and as female. It is significant to note that none of the 8 subjects was a truly elite runner. An optimal study would use world-class runners, and the results would be used to justify the presence of transgender women in events such as the Olympic Games. Unfortunately, there are simply no world-class transgender distance runners. 3 of the 8 runners have achieved notable success at a national level, and 2 of the other runners could be described as sub-elite. Resistance to the presence of transgender women occurs at all levels of sport, and so there is still a lot of merit, still much merit to the study. Let's see. One interesting trend was noted in runners 5, 6, and 8 who age graded higher in shorter events as women than they did in longer events. Runner 6 and 8 scored higher age grades in 5K races than they did as males, but lower AGs in longer races, half marathons and up. Runner 5 scored low across the board as female than male, but her 5K AGs were much closer to her male ones than her marathon AGs were. Transgender women carry more muscle mass than cisgender women. This extra muscle mass might cause increased speed when compared to cisgender women, and hence faster times and higher AGs at shorter distances. Increased muscle mass and heavier bones are not conducive to long-distance running, and would actually be a disadvantage when running distances of a half marathon and higher, causing slower times and lower AGs. This effect is small in the three mentioned runners, and none of the other 5 runners submitted data over a wide enough range of distances to determine whether or not this pattern held true for them. More research would need to confirm or refute the hypothesis of distance-related variations in age grade scores for transgender women. It should also be noted that the results are only valid for distance running. Transgender women are taller and larger on average than cisgender women, and these differences probably would result in performance advantages in events where height and strength are obvious precursors to success, events such as the shot put and the high jump. Conversely, transgender women will probably have a notable disadvantage in sports such as gymnastics, where greater size is an impediment to optimal performance. All right. Conclusions. Despite the fact that transgender women have been allowed to compete against cisgender ones since 2004, there's been no study to justify the decision beyond the original work of Gurin and Bunk. It bears repeating that the original study was not undertaken on athletes, nor did it directly measure any aspect of athleticism. In fact, this is the first time a study has been developed to measure the performance of transgender athletes. The author overcame 2 significant barriers which have prevented any previous study from being performed, i.e. the difficulty in determining an appropriate metric to use to measure athletic performance both before and after testosterone suppression, and the difficulty in finding enough willing study participants in any given sport. The author chose to use standard age grading methodology, which is commonly used in masters, over 40 track meets worldwide. Blah, 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 blah. Should be noted that this conclusion only applies to distance running, and the author makes no claims as to the quality of performances pre- and post-gender transition in any other sport. As such, the study cannot unequivocally state that it is fair to allow transgender women to compete against cis women in all sports, although the study does not make a powerful statement in favor of such a position. Although the study does make a powerful statement in favor of such a position. So basically, again, the study cannot unequivocally state that it is fair, but it does make a powerful statement in favor of the position. So, again, this is a pretty favorable study, I would say. Yeah, and Archangel Decab, that's a good observation, because there is a definite bias in sports. Transgender men tend to be more accepted in male sports. I think this is largely due to some inherent biases. It's a larger I don't know the words I'm trying to say. I hope I'm making sense, okay? Anyway. Let's take a look at another study. Let's see. Here we go. Muscle size, muscle strength, size, and composition following 12 months of gender-affirming treatment in transgender individuals. This study is from 2020. It's an observational one. So we're using even newer data. Let's see. As many. Okay, yeah. Okay. Actually, this is. Oh yeah. Okay. So, we have the full study here in its pre-published form. Wow, you still at it? Yeah, I'm still at it. We were part of the Prime Kai's stream earlier, and yeah, I wanted to get to this section because I was up late last night talking with transphobes on Twitter all night about transgender women in sports, and I figured I might as well put that training and all the studies they provided me that actually support my position to use. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay. So, wait a minute. Oh yeah, see? It's this guy. Look at this guy. He's like one of the only guys who like has been citing this study. He's very persistent, this one. It's great. So let's take a look. We can look at the full text if we'd like, and I would definitely link all of that when we finish going over these studies. But I think for our purposes, we can probably just go over the abstract here real quick. This study explored the effects of gender-affirming treatment, which includes inhibition of endogenous, endogenous? I'm not sure how to pronounce that word. Huh. I've never had to say it out loud before. Sex hormones, and replace it with cross-sex hormones on muscle function, size, and composition in 11 trans women and 12 trans men. Again, these sample sizes are very, very small. I'm not saying that to dismiss the data in any regard, but I am saying that much like most of these studies come to the conclusion to, they say we need more research. We need more research. And yeah, I'm not gonna play this game, chat. I'm not gonna try and say it again. Okay. So isokinetic methods, isokinetic knee extensor and flexor muscle strength was assessed at baseline 4 weeks after gonadal suppression of endogenous hormones, but before hormone replacement, and 3 and 11 months after hormone replacement. In addition, at T100 and T12, we assessed lower limb muscle volume using MRI and cross-sectional CSA, cross-sectional area and radiological density using CT. Results: thigh muscle volume increased 15% in trans men, which was paralleled by increased quadriceps CSA, again cross-sectional area, 15%, and radiological density by 6%. In trans women, the corresponding parameters decreased by 5%, muscle volume, 4% CSA, while density remained unaltered. The trans men increased strength over the assessment period, while the trans women generally maintained or slightly increased in strength. Baseline muscle volume correlated highly with strength, yet the relative change in muscle volume and strength correlated only moderately. The absolute levels of muscle volume and knee extension strength after the intervention still favored the trans women. Conclusion: cross-sex hormone treatment markedly affects muscle strength, size, and composition in transgender individuals. Despite the robust increases in muscle mass and strength in trans men, the trans women were still stronger and had more muscle mass following 12 months of treatment. These findings add new knowledge that could be relevant when evaluating trans women's eligibility to compete in women's category of athletic competitions. Now, this is a good study. It's a good study. This is good data. We need more data like this. I would say, however, that these studies have been limited by about a year-long study. I think we need longer studies, and I think we need we need significantly longer studies. At the very least, I would say 2 years, and at most, I would say we should probably go like 6 years after, because guys, I don't know if you know this, but puberty doesn't usually happen for people over the course of just 1 year. Usually it takes a bit longer. It takes like 6 or 7 years for puberty to run its course. It's not like a 13-year-old has 1 year of puberty and they're done growing at 14. Yeah, there should be a variety of much longer studies. There should also be much larger sample sizes. But I'm happy to see different assessments here, and partly, yeah, around 5+ years you should be done. Yes. But I would say that this is a good study to have. We need more data like this. I think this is good. And on top of that, let's take a look. New study on changes in muscle mass and strength after gender-affirming treatment may have an impact on sports regulations. This is Tommy Lundberg, researcher and responsible for the measures of muscle mass and strength in the study. Again, the study we just went over briefly. We went over the abstract. If you guys want to look over the full text, you can certainly do that. Overall, in this project, we were interested in increasing the knowledge about sex hormones and the consequences of changing the hormonal milieu during adulthood. We explore the effects on skeletal muscle, heart, vessels, and adipose tissue. In this particular study, we have chosen to comprehensively assess changes in strength, muscle mass, and muscle composition with gender-affirming hormonal therapy. This is currently a hot topic in sports because sports governing bodies are forced to form regulations on participation for transgender individuals who undergo hormone therapy and wish to compete in the category that matches their gender identity. To date, there's very little scientific data on physical changes with cross-hormone therapy, not least in terms of muscle strength. What did you find out? In line with what we expected, the transgender men increased muscle mass and strength significantly after 12 months of testosterone therapy. Perhaps more surprising was that transgender women did not lose strength at all, despite inhibited testosterone production. In addition, the effect on muscle mass of transgender women was less pronounced than many people previously thought, losing only 5% of the muscle volume over the thigh muscles, which again, you need more measurements of this data, okay? What are the implications of these results? Several international sports organizations have already called for more research in this area. Good. Most sports are positive to include trans people, but at the same time, they consider it important to protect women's category of sport from unfair advantages. Therefore, it is important that studies are investigating changes in physical parameters such as muscle mass, strength, and endurance capacity during ongoing treatment. How our data will be interpreted and used in sports is too early to say, but we clearly add an important piece to the puzzle. However, it is important to note that we only examined a few selected performance markers and the participants were untrained. The magnitude of physical changes in elite athletes who undergo treatment while training in their sport is very difficult to speculate, as there are no such studies. So the next step, we have planned a 3-year follow-up to see whatever happens over a longer period of time. Very interested to hear more about what happens on this in a couple years. The first participants in the study are already at this stage. In addition, we have taken tissue samples from muscle, fat, and skin to be analyzed in the lab. Hopefully these analyses can give us further knowledge about the changes that occur when you radically alter the sex hormone profile in adulthood. It would also be interesting to study all other performance factors important in sports, such as maximum oxygen uptake. So this is basically, I think, all very good things. And again, I need to emphasize This is not saying transgender women cannot participate in sports with transgender, or sorry, with cisgender men, with cisgender women. There we go. Um, that's not what the finding of this study suggests, but it does call for more research, and I definitely agree with that. We should know more about trans bodies, and I'm all in favor of us learning more about trans bodies. Um, so, let's see. Did I have more that I wanted to go through? Like, I have more studies, but I'm not entirely sure, like, metabolic and functional changes in transgender individuals following cross-sex hormone treatment will be something um, important enough here. Metabolic factors. I mean, I guess we can take a look at some of it here. I'm interested in the conclusions before I get to the data, I guess. All right. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, done randomly, given that, like, we've had transgender participation in sports for literally, like, the last 16 years, you would think that the data kind of shows that, like, generally transgender athletes don't dominate their respective fields, right? Like, if that were the case, like, we would be seeing a whole lot more notable trans athletes, right? Right now, like it's only like, oh no, two high school girls got a bunch of titles in their respective high school. Oh no, the horror. Like that's basically where we are on this, right? Um, like I don't know any other like transgender athletes out there aside from like the high school sports scares in the United States. Um, and given that there's been like 16 years of like allowing transgender people to participate, I feel like we have some pretty good data indicating that they do not have some kind of overwhelming advantage. Oh yeah, yeah. An MMA fighter won 5 fights and got knocked out once. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. An MMA fighter did kind of okay, I guess. And her like the people who lost her just cried about it. How about you just be a better fighter? Like clearly someone was because they beat her. So people only have a problem with transgender athletes when they win. That's like that's part of what gets me, right? Because I think all of this will just lead to more cis people being forced to alter their body to be fair, aka some being on steroids to be on the level. I mean, maybe. I mean that could be, I guess, but also like I don't know, sports aren't inherently fair. The entire point of participating in sports is bringing out the disparities between individuals. So I don't know. At what point is something fair, right? I don't think this study is very useful for us for the purposes of what we're talking about. Like it's talking more about like infection rates and like mortality, um, skin changes, fat tissue. Okay, yeah, this study isn't super interesting for our current purposes. I think we had a convo about this in primes, but you believe pre-op transgender women should be able to participate. Also, what about gender fluid? Yeah, pre-op, like you can be on medication for years and like be transitioning, and like what your genitals are has no effect on your ability to perform like at all. Um, as far as like gender fluid and non-binary, I think that's a much harder question to answer, to be honest. Um, like gender fluid or non-binary folk, I'm not really sure how we would cross that bridge. It might be that we have to like defer to like their some general range of like biological sex when it comes to those individuals, unless they are on hormones. I think that's a much harder question to answer because, again, we're talking about where we set arbitrary lines for a spectrum that is not as straightforward as a lot of people generally think it is, you know? Um, Same chuds who say trans athletes aren't fair are often the ones who say life's not fair. True. True, whose username? Also, whose username? Have I seen you in chat before? Because if not, hello. Welcome. I hope you have a great time here. Let's see. I was asking about pre-med, not pre-op. That was my bad. No, it's okay. It's a mistake. Like I certainly wasn't educated on like the lingo when I was growing up. What's gender fluid? Gender fluid is somebody who, and I guess I can take the study off the screen right now because I don't have more studies to show at the moment. Gender fluid is someone who, like their gender identity is not locked in place. So gender fluid people can kind of change what their gender identity is over time. So sometimes they identify as male, sometimes they identify as female, sometimes they identify as neither. Um, it can be all over the place. I was so shocked when I realized, wait, you don't have to get surgery to be trans. True, true. Um, you're trying to bread pill heme, so I was happy when you talked to him about co-ops. Oh, awesome. I mean, I feel like he's almost there. I feel like Dr. Heemdout is almost there. Like he's already with me on decommodification. So like I feel like I can get him on capitalism too. Do you think transgender people pre-med should be able to compete? Um, I think that is a harder question, and I think there need to be actual like guidelines. I think for me, it depends. I think like when we're talking about maybe kids that are pre-puberty, uh, definitely, I think they should be able to participate in whichever sports league. I think if they want to transition though, like I think like hormones or hormone blockers should be required for kids that want to participate in high school sports, which they currently are. If you're a transgender woman and you're in high school and you want to participate in women's sports, you have to be on hormones for a specified period of time. I believe that's the case. It depends on the state, though. Um, yeah. So generally, yeah, I think pre-med is fine if you're prepubescent, but largely after that point, I think that it's reasonable to have some regulations regarding when trans people are allowed to participate. That is at least somewhat grounded in biology. Yeah, he wants to decommodify the most important disparities in capitalism, so he's all right. Lib in my book. Exactly, whose username? Exactly. Unless your state is you got to be your biological gender no matter what. Like that poor trans man in Texas forced to wrestle women. Yeah, that was oof. That was some big oof. Um, yeah, some really wacky things start happening if you force transgender people to participate in the sports of their like biological sex. Yeah, some really wacky stuff starts happening, and I don't think most people want that. To be 100% honest with you. Um, do 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 do. All right. The whole bio argument seems to lead to fucky results, though. I think it was pretty recently that a cis woman was thrown out because her testosterone levels were too high. Yeah. You're talking about Caster Semenya, and she, yeah, like when you start going down like that, you need to have the right testosterone level route. It can get really weird really fast because a lot of cis people also have abnormal hormone levels. A lot of cis people also have a lot of different genetic conditions that they don't know about. And what in the case of Caster Semenya, I think it's super weird that she was required to take medication to lower her hormone levels, like her natural hormone levels, because like with people like Michael Phelps, we don't like force him to like uh, break his feet to make them smaller and less and more in line with like natural feet size or anything like that. We don't force him to take medication to suppress his ability to his body like had an ability to like process lactic acid very quickly. We don't force him to have medication for that. But for some reason with Caster Semenya, we adopt a different approach. It's very strange to me. Um, let's see. I definitely agree there should be more research. It seems the release um, is always related to track and field stuff. I think they should find ways to do more research across more sports, and then, if approved, we legislate and allow it. But there seems to be just a shortage of studies with high participation. Well, yeah, it's because a lot of trans people get like pressured out of sports, right? Like because the prevailing narrative is that transgender women, in particular, have an overwhelming advantage over cis women. When most of the data we have on that doesn't seem to suggest that. Um, and it's only like fringe cases when transgender women win in sporting competitions that get cherry picked into like the wider narrative. Um, and so like it just winds up that there aren't a ton of trans athletes, and there aren't a ton of trans people either. So we get into this weird situation where like you need more research to be done, but not a lot of high level athletes are out there to be involved in the research. And even if they are, they're not necessarily willing to participate in said research because of like the distrust that they have of like uh, just people in general from their experiences in sports. Um, I think sports ball would profit from having a regular Andy compete with pro athletes so the couch potatoes at home can see how superhuman they are. Potato butt plug, I actually agree with you. It would be very entertaining if the Olympics had like one normie try and compete against other Olympic athletes. I would enjoy that. Do you think the age of transition should make any difference? So, a trans woman who started transitioning at 9 years old and a trans woman who started transitioning at 29 years old should compete in the same category, or no? Well, I think definitely people who transition younger should 100% be allowed to participate in sports. Absolutely. There's literally no difference. Like when we're talking about like kids who transition and just go through one puberty, and they're trans, there's literally almost no difference between a trans person who transitions early and like a cis person. Like no biological difference, hardly at all. Like it indistinguishable. But what a lot of these studies are about is largely about trans women who transition at older ages, and that's where a lot of people have a lot of concerns, or rather, that's making it sound too rational. A lot of people have concerns about like children and participation in sports too. Like people freak out over high school students who are transgender all the time. Um, but yeah, when you in your example where someone transitions at like 29, like honestly, it doesn't make a difference when you're talking about like what your after work softball league or like um some sort of intramural sport in college. Like no, those don't matter. Just let people compete where they want to compete, you know. Um, let's see. Does the med treatment affect steroid tests? Well, in transgender women, it like transgender women literally have medication that blocks their ability to absorb testosterone into their systems. So, like, injecting a trans woman with testosterone really wouldn't do anything. Um, let's see. Stupid idle thought. I don't think to myself that if I had the chance to be zapped into a girl by an elderly eccentric magician, or I often think, well, you know, Prince Harpseal maybe consider that you might be trans. It's possible. And you know what? If you are, that's cool. And if you're not, that's also cool. It's fine to be whoever you are. Um, one of my like guys, my actual realization when I was trans basically worked like this. I just suddenly realized one day that like cis people don't constantly agonize over not being like the opposite gender. Like cis people don't do that. As like that is something I should have observed far sooner, but I did not. It took me a while to get there. But yeah, like I think it is notable that in many of these major studies here that were provided to me, what do you think about non-dysphoric trans people? Totally valid. They're fine. Um, you know, live your best life. Do what you want with your body. It's yours. Um, even after questioning it, took me until I wish I looked like her moment for me to say, okay, stop questioning your trans. Yeah. But I think it's notable that in the largest study that we have, which is still the original study on trans people in sports, the conclusion was largely, you know, it's justifiable that reassigned trans women compete with other women. This is the largest study we have, and it seems pretty, you know, pretty much like, you know, you also have, we'll get to that one. You also have this study, which is basically like, yeah, I mean, like, I didn't find anything that would bar trans people from participating. We just, need more research. And I think that my study does make a powerful argument that trans people should participate with like the gender that they identify with if they've undergone hormone therapy. So, and then we have this study, which basically, the lead researcher is basically like, hey, we need more research. We can't really make any conclusions based on how small our research was, because it wasn't over a long enough period of time. So this is just like many of the major studies from like 2004 until today don't have any conclusive evidence that one can use to actually say, hey, trans people should be barred from sports. With like trans women can't compete with cis women. None of these studies have found that, and anyone who claims to you that they have is not being honest about it. So there might be more studies out there, but these are the ones that were sent to me last night over a very long conversation with an internet rando who thought that it was a good use of his time to badger me on the internet about how trans people shouldn't be allowed in the sports of their assigned gender. Do you think every sport should have research, or do you think these studies should allow participation in all sports? I think that the research that's out there generally shows that, like, it's fine for trans women to compete alongside cis women. Like, some of them do show that there might be some slight advantages to trans women. However, sports aren't inherently fair either. Like, again, when we boil it down, like, tall people in volleyball have a genetic advantage over shorter people in volleyball. So, like, depending on the sport, like, even within cis groups, like, you have people who have more advantage or less advantage. And I think it's fine if we allow trans women to participate in sports. I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think the last 16 years of competitive data that we have that show us that there is a surprising lack of trans women achieving in sports indicates to me, at the very least, that it's not a huge issue, and we shouldn't be super worried about it. At the same time, again, more research should be done. So that's basically my position, right? More research should be done, but it doesn't seem like it's currently hurting anything. It mostly seems like whiny babies complaining on the internet about, like, cherry-picked examples. And a lot of the studies that have been sent to me by people who think that my position is wrong all are either inconclusive when it comes to trans participation in sports, or actually support transgender women competing alongside cis women. So, like, that, this is my general position. If the people who are holding the opposing position that I have, like, are holding their position in opposition to me, and the data they're using all supports my position, well then, yeah, I think that we have a pretty good case for, transgender people competing alongside cis people. I think that's fine. So that brings us to this study, which apparently has been accepted for print and has been peer-reviewed. I'm excited to read this when it finally comes out. So Tommy Lundberg, who is this gentleman from who wants to do more research. That's cool. I support that. Has been putting together a review of the existent literature. Now, I'm going to pull out another study here really quick. And it's over here somewhere. Where did I put it? Where did I put this study? Might be over here. I have a lot of tabs. Yes, it is this one. There we go. Okay. Accept all cookies. That's fine. So, this is the study. So, first we'll go over this, right? So this is from 2016. Sport and Transgender People, a systematic review of the literature relating to sports participation and competitive sport policies. Now, basically, Gonna share your screen. Oh, that's right. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you might want to see what I'm talking about. True. True. I'm a pro streamer, guys. Pro streamer. Number one politics streamer on Twitch. Um, um, so basically, this is just a review of the literature. Okay, so basically, they looked at a bunch of studies. I believe 31 studies. Yes, 31. No, 8 research pieces and 31 sports policies. There we go. Um, and basically, they went through the various data available and tried to kind of apply basically like what the results are, kind of discern them, pull them apart, figure out what it's actually saying. Now, part of the problem is, as of 2016, when this was published, Gurin and Bunk, that original study that I talked about, was basically the only qualitative piece of study out there. So, a lot of the conclusions were also drawn from that study. So, let's take a look here at the conclusion. Overall, it appears the majority of transgender people have a negative experience of competitive sport and sport-related physical activities. Accessibility to sport-related physical activity needs to be improved. Within competitive sport, the athletic advantage transgender athletes are perceived to have appears to have been overinterpreted by many sport organizations around the world, which has had a negative effect on the experiences of this population. When the indirect and ambiguous physiological evidence is dissected, it is only transgender female individuals who are perceived to potentially have an advantage as a result of androgenic hormones. Within the literature, it has been questioned as to whether androgenic hormones should be the only marker of athletic advantage, or indeed if they are even a useful marker of athletic advantage. Given the established mental and physical health benefits of engaging in physical activity and sport, the barriers transgender people experience are a significant limitation to the promotion of healthy behaviors in transgender individuals. There are several areas of future research required to significantly improve our knowledge of transgender people's experiences in sport, inform the development of more inclusive sports policies, and most importantly, enhance the lives of transgender people both physically and psychosocially. So this is where we're at here, at least as of 2016, right? You know, you had the Gurin and Bunk study, and basically it was just like, hey, the advantages that transgender women have, if they have them, are not conclusively overwhelming. It seems largely overstated, and mostly it is due to the perception of trans women being stronger than cis women, and that is a problem. It's not related to the reality. The perception is greater than the reality. So we now get to this piece. Now, Tommy Lundberg, I'm not fully aware of who he is, right? He's a Swedish researcher. You know, he works out of Stockholm, Sweden. And I am going to take it at face value that he is a good faith actor. Though I do have some doubts about that, largely because we're going to go to twitter.com, everybody. Largely because Tommy Lundberg decided to chime in on this thread wherein I had an extremely lengthy discussion with a Twitter troll about transgender women participating alongside cisgender women. Now, this guy goes in some wild directions, but I need to be clear here that I do not know Sebastian Armstrong. I don't know who he is. He's just someone who searched this specific topic online in order to troll people about it and argue with them online and badger them. Yeah, see, like, the only thing this account talks about is, like, transgender or gender non-conforming people in sports. So, you know, here he is badgering someone about Caster Semenya. Here he is, you know, going after different people who are talking about transgender people in sports. There you go. Look at this guy. Clearly a good faith actor, just living his life on Twitter, being the best he can be. clearly has no investment in this topic, clearly a good faith actor who just wants to inform people. Look at all of these responses. Um, yeah, these are pretty cool. Pretty cool guy. Um, oh yeah, they this is a sign, by the way, that someone is a bigot. Like, just being a concerned citizen who wants to inform about science seems like an odd position to take when you're online badgering people about, denying trans women access. Now, to his credit, Sebastian Armstrong did do some fantastic research for me by finding me all of these articles that supposedly showed that transgender women should not participate in sports alongside cisgender women. Um, Unfortunately, I don't agree that they say the things he thought they did. Um, so that's kind of the main problem here. Hello, Peter Parker. Welcome to the chat. We're talking about trans people in sports. Um, and yeah. So anyway, if people like this approach you, please don't do what I did and engage them in honest conversation, um, and then devolve into mocking them relentlessly for their bigotry. Mostly because it's a waste of your time, and your time is more valuable than that. Certainly was something I shouldn't have done. I do have an issue of talking with the trolls. It's true, mostly because I have fun with it, and so like I spend a lot of time mocking these people. Anyway, let's see. Yep. Also, fun fact, Christy Miller, super cool, apparently a world champion aquathon competitor, an Australian modern pentathlon doer. I'm not really sure how I feel about a prison governor. That sounds not good. But, seems pretty neat on transgender people in sports. Anyway, agreed with me, came in with some good research. I appreciate good research, I consider myself a conservative, but I don't want to troll. Well, that's okay. You don't have to troll. You can ask good faith questions in here. Just don't be like super weird about it. Like, I'm happy to talk with people who are not on my side in this issue, as clearly demonstrated in this thread. But you have this, right? You just want to listen. That's why I came in. Well, this is a perfect place to be. So you have this thread, right? You have this guy making claims. Gosh, I lost it already. Here we go. Let's find the tweet. You have this guy making claims, and he keeps atting TL exercise. And I was wondering why, and I didn't understand like the connection to anything else I was experiencing. Again, Tommy Lundberg is the researcher from this study, one of the authors of this study. And let's go look at. So I want to assume that he's a good faith researcher, but the fact that he chimes in on a very long thread of this guy harassing a stranger on the internet about science for no reason in an unsolicited manner makes me think maybe Tommy Lundberg is kind of not great. But again, this is I don't know him personally, and he seems fine in other regards. So, you know what? Sure, this is fine. A lot of research stuff here, and I'm fine with this. Yeah. Anyway, his main point of view largely seems to be, at least as he explained in the thread, because he chimed in more than once, was that he believes that the rules around transgender participation in sports should not have been changed because there was no evidence. You first needed to present evidence that there was not a substantial advantage between trans women and cis women. and he does not believe that that evidence has been made clear enough. So it seems like he might be out to do just that, right? So he might have an ideological bone to pick in this, but he also might not. I'm on the verge of giving him the benefit of the doubt. However, that brings us to Emma N. Hilton. Now, guys, I don't know if you've heard of Emma N. Hilton before, but I have. Let's take a quick look at Emma Hilton's Twitter. Oh dear. She's gone full gender critical over here. Female sports exist to celebrate the achievements of extraordinary females, not those of ordinary males. So, one thing to understand about this lady right off the bat, this is her Twitter banner. She does not consider transgender women women. She doesn't think that. Which is, by the way, a huge departure for a lot of biologists. Because she should know, that sex isn't clearly binary, and neither is gender. It's true. Twitter bright mode. It's true. Shield your eyes. It's too bright. So yeah. Basically, this is basically her her attempt to explain. I'm sorry, guys. She's totally a doctor. Her banner says it. Catholic gaming. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt on the fact that she does actually have a doctorate in developmental biology. But let's take a look really quick at this, where I'm gonna go right down to the very end of this study real quick. For one simple thing right here, the authors of this declare no conflict of interest. I don't know. Emma Hilton seems to have a pretty set conflict of interest on her Twitter fucking bio. And, you know, it might be like, you might be thinking to yourself, wait, maybe it's just her Twitter. You know, maybe this isn't enough to establish that she has a conflict of interest, right? Let's, you know, maybe there's more to this Emma Hilton character, right? Maybe there's a bit more that we just don't understand. Emma Hilton. Let's take a look more at the world of Emma Hilton. Weird. Why does she have, when you search her name, why is a prominent Reddit subreddit saying that she's a TERF research fellow? What? Oh no. Apparently, she's also written a number of very dishonest and disingenuous, or let's just say ideologically biased pieces. Here's her piece in the Wall Street Journal. Is she from TERF Island? Why, yes, she is, Riot Girl Callie. She is from the good old British Isles. And not the good ones, the bad one. What did she use to support her opinion from a scientific perspective? Well, given that this is an opinion piece, I'm gonna guess not much. But we'll take a look at this because, again, she's a developmental biologist, a biologist. Transgender ideology harms women, gays, and especially feminine boys and masculine girls. Oh, no. We'll get to that GSU gambit because this we'll get to this. This is not a study. This is it is a study. It's a scientific review of the existing literature. So it's literally the same type of study as this one. So it's a systemic review using the information out there. So let's just take a look at this dangerous denial of sex. I guess I need to sign in to read the full story. Unless, wait, if I open it in an incognito window, can I read the entire thing? No, wait. Yes, I can. I can read the entire thing, guys. Look at this. This magic. All right. A dangerous denial of sex, despite the fact that sex isn't binary. Weird. Transgender ideology can take on a comical character, as in a recent American Civil Liberties Union commentary objecting to sales tax on tampons and similar products while pondering, how can we recognize that barriers to menstrual access are a form of sex discrimination without erasing the lived experience of trans men and non-binary people who menstruate, as well as women who don't? Which, again, not all women menstruate. Some men do menstruate because they're trans men. Her initial take in this article is that it is funny for there to be a thing such as trans men or non-binary people. So, again, I need to remind you, the study she authored says she has no conflicts of interest, that she has no ideological bone to pick with this issue is already laughable from one paragraph of this piece. Yet it's one thing to claim that a man can identify as a woman. Again, identify in air quotes. Increasingly, we see a dangerous and anti-scientific trend toward the outright denial of biological sex. No, because that's literally, guys, biological sex is what differentiates a trans person from a cis person. Saying you're a trans person recognizes that there is a thing such as biological sex. It's literally the thing that makes you trans. Let's keep going, I guess. By the way, I haven't read this yet. I just know that it's wrong. Because of course it is. The idea of two sexes is simplistic. An article in the Scientific Journal of Nature declared in 2015, biologists now think there's a wider spectrum than that. A 2018 Scientific American piece asserted, interesting that they aren't linking to these. I wish they would. That'd be really nice. Biologists now think there's a larger spectrum than just binary male and female. And an October 2018 New York Times headline promised to explain why sex is not binary. The argument is that because some people are intersex, they have developmental conditions resulting in ambiguous sex characteristics, the categories of male and female exist on a spectrum, and therefore no more than social constructs. That's not what this means. What the fuck? But do you think personal thoughts should affect their scientific review? Do you think it would be bad faith if someone found a researcher that attends transgender parades and said their research is invalid because they have they are compromised? I think it's different to be doing something that celebrates your identity, and I think that is a different thing than going out of your way to attack other people. You know? Yeah. So. I think that's different. Literally, by the way, she's siding with I have this open somewhere. Yeah. Like this piece is mocking the American Civil Liberties Union for protecting trans people. Yeah, Lady Raincloud, you might want to step away from the stream for a while for this transgender bit. Oh, here we go. She's literally siding, taking the same ideological position as the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is defined by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group against LGBTQ people. So I don't think aligning yourself with a hate group is like I don't think aligning yourself with a hate group is the same as like celebrating your own personal identity. Um, Maybe someone could claim that you're biased because of who you are, um, but I think that but it's more interesting to see how they attempt to back their points. I agree that there are some extremely bad faith actors. Well, that's my point. My point is like if you're aligning yourself with the same position that a well-known hate group has, it's not good. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is a bit of a stretch to say like she's just expressing her ideology the same way like someone going to a pride parade is. Um yeah, like she's literally going against the science here. But I guess I need to break down this idea because I am honestly baffled that a biologist would make this argument. So here, I'm going to break this down for you guys. Okay. The argument is that people that because some people are intersex, they have developmental conditions resulting in ambiguous sex characteristics. The categories between male and female exist on a spectrum. Now, this, so far, is relatively accurate because biological sex is different from the social construct of gender. I don't think it's possible to have this convo in text because lots of people are just going to throw nonsense in the chat. I'm extremely pro-trans in lots of ways. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Like, it's a difficult issue. Like, I understand the question that you're trying to ask. I just think it's like a bit different than like it seems almost like saying like well, this person's taking on white supremacist attitudes, and like that to me, like if someone who like studied like sociological associations of race had like the same position as the KKK when it comes to race, and on the other hand you had a researcher who like is celebrates Kwanzaa, like I think that those two things are not equivalent, you know. Um, but like I would tend to say, you know, maybe the person who celebrates Kwanzaa isn't quite as biased as this person who's going out of their way to adopt the ideology of a hate group. That's my point, I guess. Um, let's see. So this all is accurate here, right? Like the categories of male and female exist on a spectrum. Yes, because again, this part cites several different articles with citations of how biology is not binary, because there are a lot of conditions that can cause people to be born and manifest different sexual characteristics, which means that there is actually a much wider spectrum than just male and female biological sex. You can be intersex in a lot of different ways, after all. So, yeah, the video that Nightbot posts related to sex is a pretty good resource of showing all of the different permutations, or at least a significant window of permutations when it comes to sex. I highly recommend everyone watches it if they don't know how this can be when you're talking about biological sex. However, where this sentence completely goes off the rails is that it's saying that biological sex is a social construct. Now, this is true in one sense, and only in one sense. In the sense that all categories are socially constructed in order for us to understand them better. In the same sense that like all science is socially constructed so that we can better understand it. That's true. But what this is implying is the argument that basically social constructs are somehow lesser or not real, which is not true. Gender is a social construct, but that's different from biological sex, right? that's part of the issue. So yes, gender is a social construct. Biological sex largely is not. If male and female are merely arbitrary groupings, it follows that everyone, regardless of genetics or anatomy, would be free to choose to identify as male or female or reject sex entirely in favor of a new bespoke gender identity. And now, like, I kind of understand what's happening here, right? So basically, this issue is that they are trying to conflate biological sex and gender, which doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to propose a thought experiment to all of you, and this is a common one that I use when I engage with transphobes. Right? If you're walking into an office and you see someone like, how about the reverse? You are the receptionist at an office. Someone walks in. They look to be presenting in a feminine manner. They're wearing a dress. They look rather professional. Do you need to pull down their pants or skirt in order to visually see their genitals before you say, "Hello, ma'am. How's it going today?" You give them a gendered greeting. Do you need to see their genitals in order to gender that person? In order for you to understand them within your personal framework of gender? Because the answer is probably no, and if it's yes, you should probably be getting arrested for sexual assault. And that's the issue. Yeah, that's the issue. People gender other people based on their socially constructed understanding of gender. And gender is related to biological sex in some ways. Like, our understanding of biological sex is related to gender. For a lot of people, if someone identifies as male, we tend to assume they have a penis. But that's not always the case, because there are people who were born with biologically female who choose to transition because they identify as male, and they become male. Like, if they walk into an office, they're wearing a suit and tie, carrying a briefcase, and a receptionist goes, "Hello, sir." Like, this is yes, please, chose to transgender. Yes, I have been talking for a very long time today, guys. So this is part of the issue, right? Like, we don't pull down people's pants in order to see their genitals before we gender them. This is why people say gender is a social construct. It's because people don't actively base how they gender people based on the physical characteristics of other people, or rather the sexual characteristics of other people, right? Like, we don't force people to do DNA tests or blood tests before we say, how's he doing? We don't force people to do, or how's she doing? We don't do this. We don't have genital essentialists in everyday life, and no one behaves like that, because if you did, you would be considered like a psychopath. So this is the issue. This article is trying to act like gender and sex are the same thing, and it has to, because it's written by people who are ideologically opposed to the existence of transgender people. And by the way, transgender ideology is not really a thing. Like, sociologists and psychologists and biologists largely overwhelmingly agree that transgender people are valid and should be treated as such. End of discussion. I don't care what this one clearly biased researcher has to say. This is some weird rhetorical shit to try and pull. If you're at all being honest. To characterize this line of reasoning as having no basis in reality would be an egregious understatement. It's false at every conceivable scale of resolution. Yeah. So this person is just outright denying that gender and sex exist, I guess. Um, In humans, as in most animals or plants, an organism's biological sex corresponds to one of two distinct types of reproductive anatomy that develop for the production of small or large sex cells, sperm and eggs respectively, and associated biological functions in sexual reproduction. In humans, reproductive anatomy is unambiguously male or female at birth more than 99.98% of the time. Weird, because around 2% of the population is born with some degree of intersex. So this statistic doesn't seem to be fucking correct. The evolutionary function of these two anatomies is to aid in reproduction via the fusion of sperm and ova. No third type of sex cell exists in humans, and therefore there is no sex spectrum or additional sexes beyond male and female. Sex is binary. Except there's a lot of different permutations to one's internal organs, external sexual organs. There's a whole lot of different differentiations that can't be clearly codified into this binary system. That's the entire fucking argument of people who say that sex is not binary. What this article, by the way, is trading on is you being too dumb to know, or being too ignorant to know. Sorry, I should have said ignorant, not dumb. To know that there are side cases, a significant number of side cases, where sex is not this clearly cut. There is and also, yes, actually, no, Wormwood Blazes actually brings up a really good point, because this is a bit of a as in most animals or plants. Again, this is a huge generalization. There are many animals and plants that actually have more sexes than just two. Some animals or plants have way more. Slime molds in particular have like 100 some sexes. Like there are some like species of fungus that have hundreds of different genders. It's actually kind of wild, and fungus is really weird and scary. Yeah, one species has over 500. So yeah. Hello, Disco Rat. I have a really strong opinion on the obvious issue of trans people in sports. Sports institutions are independent bodies and should remain so. Every sports body on itself should decide whatever they will accept, whatever they will accept trans athletes or not. This is not an issue where anyone else should interfere with. Well, we just spent a lot of time looking over the data. I wish you had been here for that, but I will be posting the data later, so you can go over it for yourself. But the general consensus of a lot of the data that I went over seems to be that there's not really a good argument against having trans women compete against cis women. So, yeah. Generally, the findings were that people should just stop being so shitty about trans women participating in cis women's sports. That was the general findings, actually. So let's continue on, because we've already, guys, we're not even done yet. This is just all bullshit. Hello, Mamma Mia, and thank you very much for the follow. I very much appreciate it. There is a difference, however, between the statements that there are only two sexes and that everyone could be neatly categorized as either male or female. Again, if they can't be neatly categorized, I think that implies that this is a spectrum. Hello, Dario Rahim. I gave you a follow specifically because I saw that you also work in games, and I thought that that was rad as hell, and you made a lot of really good points on the panel. So I hope you're having a fantastic day. I also work in games, so I've been a game journalist for like 10 years. Um, yeah, I appreciate you being here. What do you? Yeah, I'm a game journalist, and I've also worked on a few games behind the scenes. Um, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Scribble's Hearts Pog basically means cool. It's a different way of saying cool. Um, I'd love to talk about that sometime. Absolutely, I would love. I love having game people on. Like I've interviewed a ton of, I like not like this isn't me like sucking your dick or anything, but it's like basically like I've the some of the best conversations I've had in my life, like conversations with like intelligent people have been with people who work in games. So I'd very much like that. As a game journalist and developer, we can all agree Fortnite is easily the best game ever made, right? I really don't like Fortnite, so I might not be your girl. I founded a co-op and we make games for a living one way or another. Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about because I think that's really fucking cool. Like I only know of a handful of like worker co-ops in the gaming space, so that got me really interested when I saw that you founded a co-op. I think that's really cool. Um, let's see. By the way, if you want to link anything in chat, you should whisper me, and I will. I'll post a link to your work in chat. Um, so other people can check it out. You know. Um, but yeah, I think worker co-ops are super based and cool. I'm a market socialist, by the way, and basically I use my platform to advocate for market socialism, and so yeah, I really like worker co-ops. True, worker co-ops are pogs. It's true. Um, don't look too closely right now. We're about to relaunch the first independent title. It's a bit scrappy at the moment. It's okay. I like scrappy stuff. I like scrappy, ambitious stuff, even if it doesn't necessarily like rise to its ambitions. I like when games try. You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for Mars Warlogs. I don't know if anyone ever played that game, but it was basically like a really small attempt at doing like a Mass Effect game, and I respect that. Um, Hello, Sunny Finances Everything. New to the channel, I've never been anyone that's trans before, and I'd love to ask a few questions, not insulting. Will that be okay? Sure. Sunny Finances Everything, feel free to ask. Um, I am happy to be a resource for you. Um, oh, Lucid Duck, that where are all these people getting super cute emotes? Jeez Louise. Um, isn't the non-binary under the trans umbrella definition? Yeah, non-binary it counts as trans as well. Being trans only means that you do not identify as the gender you were assigned at birth, and so or the sex you were assigned at birth rather. Um, oh, awesome. Just Daria, so I know. Would you say that you prefer they them pronouns? Do, 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 do. They he is fine. Well, cool. I'll do my best to affirm you, comrade. When did you realize you identify as a woman? Largely that realization was probably when I was like 24. I'm gonna say, like 20. Yeah, I'll say like 24. Like I always knew that I was different, and then but I lacked like the vocabulary to explain that because like in the United States we don't really have like an educative course on like transgender people, right? So I didn't have the way of expressing in words like what I felt I was. And so yeah, I basically just went through this process of learning, and I was like, I think I might be trans because I don't think cis men wish they were women all the time. And then So that I had the realization that I was trans, and then I was just kind of like, I really hope I can suppress this and just be a cis man all my life, and that proved to be not successful. And then I was like, okay, I'm trans. What do I do with this? And essentially, it took the suicide of one of my really close friends for me to reach the conclusion that I needed to transition or I was going to die. So then I started taking hormones, and it's been about 3 years since then, 2.5, 3 years. Um, so, yeah, yeah, it is what it is, you know. Like I try and put a positive spin on it. It does really fucking suck though that it took that I recognize that being transgender in the United States is so fucking hard that it took the literal death of one of my close friends in order for me to accept that I needed to transition. Okay, here comes the question. You don't have to answer, and I don't mean to be insulting, but how do you feel like a woman when you've never been a woman? So, like, how do you know what it feels like? Would it be more appropriate to say you like acting like a woman? Well, no, because, like, I'm a woman. A lot of the things that we associate with being a woman are essentially learned behaviors, right? So doing makeup isn't something that women is inherent to like women, right? Like you have to learn how to do that. Having a good fashion sense as a woman, like not every woman has that. You have to learn how to do that. Um, like there is not really a feel like a woman feeling. So like the issue is like I wanted to have a different body. Like that's basically what it boils down to, right? Like I had what's called dysphoria. And so like I had a sensation that my body did not align with who I was on the inside. And so basically I had this mental sensation like all the time of wanting to rip my skin off, like I like not like to the point where I was like trying to or anything, but like it's an extremely deep discomfort with your daily existence. Like I would take to calling my body like a flesh prison because it felt like a prison, you know? It felt awful. Like dysphoria is an awful feeling and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. Um and so like this is like the thing. Like I had to change my body in order to live. I had to align my body with who I am in order to survive. It didn't for me. It didn't even necessarily go down to like, oh, I want to be a woman and wear pretty clothes. For me, it was more like I have to do this or I'm gonna die. So I did it. Um, so yeah, I did it, and I feel much better now. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I feel like whatever I feel like. It's just easiest to describe that is as I feel like a woman, and I am fulfilled by existing within this role. Um, it's true. Every top I do own is cute. I just wish they would behave themselves. Yeah, I do feel much better now, Like I'm on antidepressants now. I am thank you, Dario. I'm glad someone picked that up. Um but yeah. No, Sunny, you can keep asking if you'd like. I'm literally doing a segment on like trans women, so I think it's totally fine. Oh gosh, I wish the pandemic wasn't a thing. I miss flirting with people. I miss getting out there, Well, thank you, Peter Parker. I wish you the best in all of your endeavors as well. Yeah, you're welcome. Sorry about my wording. I really don't know how to say things in a way that doesn't come off as rude. Sunny finances everything. It's absolutely okay. Like, the issue is that there are a lot of people who come here in bad faith to ask questions that are really attempts to make me feel bad. But, like, strangers on the internet have a very hard time making me feel bad. It's essentially like Lady Raincloud has a lot of issues when it comes to people being transphobic, and by the way, I think a lot of them are very valid. Like a lot of trans people are not comfortable with answering questions about themselves like this, and that's absolutely it's like honestly absolutely valid. Like when you get people asking you questions all the time about your genitals, like how weird is it, guys, that we just kind of accept that like trans people need to tell other people about their genitals? Like, it's super weird and it's super demeaning. Like, to meet somebody new and they're like, "Oh, hello," and you're like, "Yeah, blah blah blah." You're getting to know each other, and someone's just like, "So, have you had the surgery?" And you're just like, "What the fuck?" Like, what? You wouldn't ask like a cis person about their genitals, right? Like, you wouldn't be on a date with like a guy and just like casually ask, "So how big are you?" Right? Like, yeah, no. Well, congrats, Dario. More power to you. Yeah, it's okay for you to ask. I don't mind. Oh, you've seen this dude around, it only goes downhill? Well, I'll turn it to a positive conversation if it goes downhill, okay? Um. Anyway, let's. Either you can continue asking questions, or I will continue going through this. I'm sorry, Lady Raincloud. Also, what are you doing up? I'm the one who's supposed to be the night owl. You probably need your sleep. Um. Okay. Sleep? Yeah, I know. It's foreign. Nah, I won't be rude. To someone seems genuine. Okay. I mean, I don't mean like go ahead and be rude. I just mean like you can ask me questions if you'd like. There's a difference, however, between statements that there are only two sexes, not true, that everyone can be neatly categorized as either male or female, false. This is, yeah, you can't be neatly categorized as male or female. This is true. Existence of only two sexes does not mean sex is never ambiguous, but intersex individuals are extremely rare, and they are neither a third sex nor proof that sex is a spectrum or a social construct, except that I would think that a group of people I would think that a group of people that exists outside of the binary would indicate that it's not a binary, right? That's literally it indicates it's not a binary. And part of the problem is that intersex people occur on either like within the middle of the binary or on either side of the binary. So like that's what makes it a spectrum, guys. That's what makes it a spectrum. Um gosh. Not everyone needs to be discreetly assignable to one or the other sex in order for biological sex to be functionally binary. Yes, actually, yes. To assume otherwise, to confuse secondary sexual traits with biological sex itself is a category error. A category error, you say? I thought it wasn't a social construct. So it seems like either it's a social construct to you or it's not. You know, whatever fits your narrative at the moment, I guess. Denying the reality of biological sex and supplanting it with this subjective gender identity is not merely an eccentric academic theory. Again, this isn't an eccentric theory. This is the theory of like the majority accepted scientific opinion that gender identity is real and valid. Um, and it's not supplanting biological sex with gender identity, because literally biological sex is how we determine whether someone is trans or cis. This is why there are two different types of women or different types of men. This is why this is making my brain hurt with how like disingenuous and awful this article is. And we still have so much to go through. We still have so much to go through. Women have fought hard for sex-based legal protections. Oh, wait. Raises serious human rights concerns for vulnerable groups, including women, homosexuals, and children. And I need to point out the grouping of women includes trans women. The grouping of homosexuals, you can be trans and homosexual. And children. Children can be trans. Weird. Weird how all of this works out. Women have fought hard for sex-based legal protections. Female-only spaces are necessary due to a pervasive threat of male violence and sexual assault. Again, it's really weird that this article has to go out of the way to conflate male and like men and women. To conflate men and male. This is just a way of them trying to say that gender identity and biological sex are the same thing, which they aren't, demonstrably. Women have fought hard for sex-based legal protections. You would think that sex-based legal protections would also protect trans women, as someone who would discriminate against them would be discriminating on the basis of sex. But, whatever, I guess. Segregating sporting categories are also necessary to ensure that women and girls don't have to face competitors who have acquired the irreversible performance-enhancing effects conferred by male puberty, except that, again, the data we looked over in the studies tonight show that these effects are not irreversible. Even the ones that were most in favor of this position. Anyway, let's continue reading on. The different reproductive roles of males and females require laws to safeguard women from discrimination in the workplace and elsewhere. What? I'm sorry, this one broke my brain. This isn't why, the different reproductive roles of men and women, this isn't why women need safeguarding from workplace discrimination. It has nothing to do with the reproductive roles. It has everything to do with, a patriarchal society where women are discriminated against for being women. It has nothing to do with their ability to reproduce or those roles associated with reproduction. This is a bizarre point to make in an already increasingly bizarre and wild category. The falsehood that sex is rooted in subjective identity instead of objective biology renders all these sex-based rights impossible to enforce. I have an issue regarding understanding myself at the moment. Oh, I'm sorry. Feel free to share if you'd like. People have value without reproducing. Exactly. Women have value even if they don't have uteri. You don't need a uterus to have value. The falsehood that sex is rooted in subjective identity instead of objective biology, again, not an argument that even proponents of gender identity are pushing. No one is saying that sex is rooted in subjective identity. What they are saying is that there is a wide range of the way that sex manifests in across a spectrum, and there is also, to some extent, a social construction of gender that is layered on top of sex. This is why there are trans people. So you're not saying that subjective identity, that sex is subjective and that objective biology doesn't matter. This is absolute malarkey. Absolute malarkey. Women are more than baby factories. And guess what? Fuck. I hate this. It's absolute malarkey. Yeah. So, again, we're not even done. We have 4 fucking more paragraphs to go. The denial of biological sex also erases homosexuality, as same-sex attraction is meaningless without the distinction between the sexes. What the fuck are you talking about? This is obviously not the case. This is like I'm reading a study or like an opinion piece from Bizarro World, because literally even like I'm in the opposition that she's talking about, right? Like I have the position that like gender identity is a social construct and that it is real because social constructs are real. Just because they're social constructs does not make them real. It just means we can change them. And I'm not in the position that is like sex isn't real. Good day, Peter Parker. Have a good one, okay? I hope you come back sometime. But like, I'm not saying sex isn't real, and she seems to be saying that sex isn't real in like her opponent's conception, but that's not true. She's like setting up this weird straw man here. And the reason she has to set up that straw man, and the reason this is such a weird, disjointed, like completely ludicrous article, is largely because that straw man is the only way she can formulate her position, right? She has to make it seem that her opposition is absolutely off their rocker in order to make her position make sense. Except that, again, literally the vast scientific consensus agrees that gender identity is real, that that sex is also real, and that these two things are not incompatible. In fact, one is your biology, the other is the social construction based on our understandings of that biology. So, like, yeah, you can change where you are in the social construct. This isn't that hard to wrap your head around, guys. Many activists now define homosexuality as the attraction to the same gender identity rather than the same sex. This view is at odds with the scientific understanding of human sexuality. No, it's fucking not. Again, guys, if you see a beautiful woman walking down the street, like smoking hot, like the red dress from The Matrix, right? Like you see a beautiful woman walking down the street, hair blowing in the wind, and you see them and you're like, wow, I am attracted to them. Is that based on their sexual biology? Or is that based on the social understanding of said biology? The social construct? Aw, Munamon, thank you very much for the emotes. I appreciate it. That's very kind of you. Exactly. It's the social understanding of their biology. Because you're not actually, like, putting your hand up their skirt. You're not giving them a blood test. You're not doing any of those things. So your understanding of their, your socially constructed understanding of where they're at, yeah, that's, how do I say, gender identity. It's gender identity. This person is trying to claim that gender identity isn't real, so the only way you can be attracted to someone is if you stick your hands down their pants to see what they're packing, which is an absolutely ludicrous claim. Let's keep looking at this. And notice, by the way, no citations. No citations anywhere in this article at all. Pretty weird, huh? Okay. Let's see. Okay. Lesbians have been denounced as bigots for expressing a reluctance to date men who identify as women, aka trans women. She could cite herself, right? Yeah, if she had published any notable research that was relevant to this topic, which apparently she had not as of this writing. Otherwise, I would imagine that she would have cited it. Lesbians. Oh yeah. Okay. The successful normalization of homosexuality could be undermined by miring it in untenable ideology. Literally nothing is untenable about accepting trans people. Literally nothing. And also, hey, guess what? No one is forcing you to date or have sex with trans women, like trans women or trans men. No one's forcing you to do that. No one is forcing you to do that. If you're not attracted to dick, if you're not attracted to vagina, you don't have to date a trans person who might have one of those things. But you might want to question, if you're attracted to them otherwise, why you don't want to date them. Because you might be bigoted. You might be bigoted. I'm not going to say you are, but you should interrogate why you feel the way you do. Is it because you genuinely don't have have an aversion to those genitals? Or is it largely because you find transgender people disgusting? I think there is an important distinction between those two things. Those most vulnerable to sex denialism are children. Okay, we're calling it this now, I guess. When they're taught that sex is grounded in identity instead of biology, again, not something that any children are being taught, sex categories can easily become conflated with regressive stereotypes of masculinity and femininity. Masculine girls and feminine boys may become confused about their own sex. The dramatic rise of gender dysphoric adolescents, especially young girls, in clinics likely reflects this new cultural confusion. Or it indicates that there are a lot of trans people or a lot of people who are open to questioning their gender identity, which is something that's totally fine and natural to do. There's a whole process if they want to actually transition. That takes years. Takes literally like 4 or 5 years. The large majority of gender dysphoric youths eventually outgrow their feelings of dysphoria during puberty. Citation fucking needed. And many end up identifying as homosexual adults. Affirmation therapies, which insist a child's cross-sex identity, should never be questioned, and puberty-blocking drugs, again, children need to go to therapists in order to verify that they are actually gender dysphoric. They need to consult with a medical professional. Then they need to actually undergo therapy during which they take puberty blockers. And puberty blockers don't transition them. They literally just delay puberty. So they spend years in therapy in order to make sure that this is what they actually want. The idea that kids are just willy-nilly being labeled as gender dysphoric and given like a pack of titty Skittles or like a testosterone shot, like that's not accurate at all. At all. And this study is really trying to make that seem like it's the case, I guess. Or sorry, not this study, this article. The large majority of gender dysphoric youths eventually grow out of. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, citation fucking needed. Affirmation therapies. Okay. Advertised as a way for children to buy time to sort out their identities, may only solidify feelings of dysphoria, setting them on a pathway to more invasive medical interventions and permanent infertility. Guys, do you know the rate of people who detransition, like who transition and then regret it later? Do you know what the rate of that is? It's like a lower rate than this rate cited up here. It's like 0.01%. It's it's really really fucking low, guys. Like really fucking low. Um Again, I don't have data to cite for this, but I know just from osmosis in the trans community, it's really fucking low. Um let's see. This pathologizing of sex atypical behavior is extremely worrying and regressive. It is similar to gay conversion therapy, except it's now bodies instead of minds that are being converted to bring children into proper alignment with themselves. It's weird that, like, this person is saying that allowing children to transition is basically gay conversion therapy. Um, Except that wouldn't forcing children to go through a puberty they don't want basically be the same thing? And if statistically kids who want to transition like don't regret the decision overwhelmingly at a rate that is like similar to what you said is inconsequential, um, seems to me that maybe your priorities are in the wrong place because you're valuing like a 0.1% like fringe statistic over this is the Wall Street Journal. Here, I'll link it in chat. You guys can read it over for yourselves. This has been a wild ride. Um let's see. Yeah. The time for politeness on this issue has passed. Oh, well, that's good. Fuck this lady. And fuck the guy who helped her write it. Biologists and medical professionals need to stand up for the empirical reality of biological sex. When unauthoritative scientific institutions ignore or deny empirical fact in the name of social accommodation, it is an egregious betrayal of the scientific community they represent. It undermines public trust in science, and it is dangerously harmful to the most vulnerable. Hello, no comment chick. Welcome, Raiders. How are you all doing? Thank you very much for showing up. For everyone who doesn't know, my name is Jack. I am a market socialist. I use my platform on here to talk about LGBTQ issues, and other minority issues, as well as push to build up a community that is capable of making the world a better place and, pushing for socialist solutions to our world's problems. Aw, thank you, Scribbles Hearts. Also, Revolt Rise, you're still here. I'm happy. I thought you had long gone. We're gonna move you to sock them. Oh no, Gambit, you're still here too. It's okay. I'm gonna win you over. I'm gonna win you over, Gambit. You're already with me on Medicare for All. You're already aligned with me. Okay. I'm just gonna slowly pull you in with my charisma. I saw your vintage Marvel T-shirt on stream today. I know that you care about justice. Oh gosh. I want to give you a big hug. I would love a hug. It's been like ages since I had a good hug from like someone. When I'm quiet, I am working, but I'm here. Oh. Was I making good points, Revolt Rise? This entire article is fucking wild. Let's see. Oh, wait. Munamon. I have heard someone make the argument that making forms of transition easier to access and increasing levels of education would in the end also help out potential detransitioners, since the sunk cost of transition would be much lower, which helps detransitioners when they realize that it is not working for them. I think it was from Shona Lika, but I'm not certain. Yeah, I think that's largely true. And by the way, I think we should just educate more people on transgender issues in general, right? Like, having more people educated can't be bad. Like, it's only something that could bring about more good in the world. Um, yeah, that's my position anyway. I'm gonna drink some water. I've been talking a lot today. Also, if you like this content, everybody, please hit that follow button. I very much appreciate it. You know, we're trying to build up this community, and I think we're onto something here. Um, Thank you, Mr. Crinkle7. You have a very fun name, and I'm sure you are a fantastic human being. I can't imagine any... Crinkle is just like a fun word. I can't imagine anyone being named Crinkle is a bad person. Yeah, this article has been very mauling. So the whole "but the poor detransitioners" argument for me seems to not really care about them and more about just nobody being able to transition. Yeah, exactly. No, that's what it is, Munaman. It's about creating like an air of fear around transitioning and dissuading people from doing it. Excuse me. So that brings us back to this article. It's been a long and meandering road to get back here. But now you know. And by the way, this isn't even the only article that Emma Hilton has written, because she's written other ones. Yay! Let's find another one. I'm not gonna read through another one, but I just want to like find it real quick. I know I've seen other ones. I'm gonna just, this will be the last page, then I'm gonna stop. Yep. Okay. So you have that one article, right? At the very least, this shows you where she's coming from, guys. And I need to remind you that this is where, in the very end of the article, the authors declare no conflict of interest. Clearly, Emma N. Hilton does not have any axes to grind when it comes to, you know, transgender people. Absolutely not. No axes to grind whatsoever. So, my only point here is that we have a very clear reason that we should probably view some of the findings in this article with some suspicion. Now, I have been informed by Tommy R. Lundberg that this article has been accepted and has been peer-reviewed. I'm not sure where it's going to be published. I am excited to read the final results. But we can kind of look through here. Now that we know that one of the authors of this is like just outright refuses to label trans women as women in her like articles. So that's where she's coming from. Sex dimorphism starts during early embryogenesis. Physical divergence that's measurably different between sexes. Males enjoy physical performance advantages over females within competitive sport. Underlying basis of the segregation into male and female sporting categories, these sex-based categories do not account for transgender persons who experience incongruence between their biological sex and their experienced gender identity. Weird. In this piece, she's talking about how gender identity isn't real. Weird. Weird. Huh. Strange. Bizarre. Let's keep reading, okay? Accordingly, the International Olympic Committee determined criteria by which a transgender woman may be eligible to compete in the female category, requiring total serum testosterone levels suppressed below 10. Uh, I don't remember what this measurement is actually called. Um, anyway, at least 12 months prior to and during competition. Da, 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 da. Let's see. It removes the male performance advantage, has not been collectively scrutinized. We aim to review how differences in biological characteristics between biological males and females affect sporting performance and assess whether evidence exists to support the assumption that testosterone suppression in transgender women removes the male performance advantage. All right. We report the performance gap between males and females amounts to 10 to 50%, depending on sport. Performance gap is more pronounced in sporting activities relying on muscle mass. Let's see. Longitudinal studies examining the effects of testosterone suppression on muscle mass and strength in transgender women consistently show very modest changes, where the loss of lean body mass, muscle area, and strength typically amounts to approximately 5% after 1 year of treatment. Thus, current evidence shows that the biological advantage enjoyed by transgender women is only minimally reduced when testosterone is suppressed. Sports organizations may therefore be compelled to reassess current policies regarding participation of transgender women in the female category of sport. Oh, hello, sourcing support. How you doing? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I don't know how people like J.K. Rowling, who apparently has researched a lot into this trans topic, is so transphobic. Oh, yeah, like, these people will, like, again, like, all of the other studies I've talked about tonight, I need to remind you guys, have been provided to me by people who disagree with my position. All of the other articles that I provided, their only conclusions were that either it's justifiable for trans women to compete against women in sports, it's justifiable for trans women to compete against cis women in sports, or that more research needs to be done. Good night, Lady Raincloud. I will probably be following in the near future. Sweet dreams, okay? So, and similar to the issue of J.K. Rowling and motivated reasoning, there's also a lot of motivated reasoning going on when it comes to the author of this study. And again, I need to emphasize that the other author of this study literally helped participate in an internet troll harassing me last night. So I am not entirely convinced of his good faith either, okay? But I'm going to assume at least one of these authors was doing this in good faith. Which, yeah, that's kind of weird that a researcher from a Swedish university decided to just aid and abet an internet troll in harassing me. That's kind of weird. But anyway. Also, I'm not sure that I think we need more studies. Again, largely because the current studies that are being done are based on the Olympic Committee's criteria, rather than like actual long-term studies of trans people during their transition. People forget there are some cis women with higher testosterone amounts in their bodies than some trans women, and we're just going off the hormone argument. Well, yeah, absolutely. Like Caster Semenya was required to suppress her naturally higher testosterone levels, and she's a cis woman. It's absolutely appalling to me that someone who wrote this article was able to then somehow get this article published with the caveat that they said at the end of the article they had no other like reasoning, or they had no conflicts of interest. Clearly there was some conflicts of interest here. Let's see. So we'll dive into this a little bit, right? Like, let's go to the yeah. Okay. I haven't gone through this in detail, largely because, it's not that interesting to me. But again, the last scientific review of the data available found that there was no substantial advantage for trans women over cis women, and that they should participate in sports together. So we'll see what this finds, and it's probably not in favor of trans women, given that, again, I can't stress this enough. Uh, the author of this study wrote a commentary in the Wall Street Journal, basically deliberately misunderstanding what gender identity is. So it's probably not a good faith thing. They also seem to be ignoring trans men being forced to compete in women's tournaments, despite being on testosterone too. Yeah, like a lot of this is motivated based on bigotry, right? Like there is like this bigoted understanding. Well, men are inherently stronger than women, so trans women clearly have an advantage because they were born men, whereas the reverse is opposite is true for trans men, right? Like trans men they view as really being women, so they're really competing with a disadvantage, and that's also bullshit. Just a second. I'll be right back. And I'm back. It's okay. I'm a magician. I can disappear and reappear. It's fine. Don't panic. Don't panic. It's true. I'm secretly sourcing support. I'm typing on another computer. Um, yeah, exactly. If sports can't survive without bigotry, maybe we shouldn't have sports. Um, anyway, let's take a look here at some more stuff. Um, sporting performance is strongly influenced by a range of physiological factors, including muscle force and power producing capacity, anthropometric characteristics, cardiovascular capacity, yada yada yada. Factors differ significantly between biological males and females as a result of androgen directed development of secondary sex characteristics. This confers large sporting and performance advantages on biological males over females. Within directly competing groups, blah blah blah. Basically, from my understanding of this, is they're basically setting the case that biological, like people who are biologically male and people who are biologically female are segregated from each other in sports because of different like genetic advantages that you know cis men have an inherent advantage over cis women. Therefore, there should be two different sporting categories where they can more evenly compete. That's essentially the argument here. And so they're kind of like talking about that. It goes into detail about how this doesn't accommodate for transgender people. Here's the IOC's policy. And then, let's see. Okay. Let's see. Several studies have examined the effects of testosterone suppression on the changing biology, physiology, and performance markers of transgender women. In this review, we aim to assess whether evidence exists to support the assumption that testosterone suppression in transgender women removes these advantages. To achieve this aim, we first review the differences in biological characteristics between biological males and females, and examine how those differences affect sporting performance. So again, biologically male versus biologically female. We then evaluate the studies that have measured elements of performance and physical capacity of following testosterone suppression in transgender women, and evaluate whether these findings support the supposition of fairness as per guidelines. So, let's keep going. By the way, guys, if you're new here, which you very well might be, I don't typically go over scientific studies on this channel. I just feel like I get so many questions about transgender people in sports that largely I'm kind of sick of it, and I just wanted to dive into this so I can like have a basic understanding of how to counter these arguments because they're irritating as heck, and I don't really care about sports. Um, like I cannot stress to you guys enough how little I care about sports. I just think that if trans women want to participate, they should be able to. Anyway, let's keep going. Do, 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 do. I don't care about sports. Yeah, let me rephrase. I do care about sports in one regard. It would be really, really, really nice if I, as a trans woman, could go to a gym and be comfortable in that space. That would be nice. That is the extent to which I care about sports. Because right now, if you're trans, one of the scariest things you can do is go to the gym. It's awful. So anyway, we're gonna keep going through here. Um, Development of male and female bodies. Okay, we're starting right at sperm and egg. Jeez. Okay. do, 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 do. Biological basis for sporting performance advantages in males. Let's see. Broadly, with reference to physical performance capacity, males are bigger, stronger than females. It follows that within competitive sport, males enjoy significant performance advantages over females, predicated on superior physical capacity developed during puberty, response to testosterone, indeed, prior to puberty. Blah 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 blah. Okay, we got data on that. Cool. I'm willing to concede this, by the way. Um, yeah, like it should be, but like, do you have any idea how scary it is to go into a gym and you don't neatly fit into one gender category? Like it's awful. I it is super alienating. Like the idea that if you go into the locker room at the wrong time in the wrong place, someone could like fucking flip out on you. Yeah, it's terrifying. I don't want to go into a gym. Can cis girls have top surgery or breast reduction? Absolutely. Why would they not be able to do that? I know a girl in my high school who had breast reduction surgery. And yeah, I mean, also, I mean, I have to pay for my surgeries in the United States, so like, you know, yeah. Anyway, um, let's see. Comparison of adult elite male and female achievements in sporting events can quantify the extent of male performance advantage. Okay, we searched publicly available sports federation databases and/or tournament competition records to identify sporting metrics in various events and disciplines. Calculated performance of males. Okay, cool. Yep, yep. Smallest performance gaps were seen in rowing, swimming, and running, 11 to 13%. Cool. I'm willing to just kind of accept all of these things. Olympic weightlifting, where weight categories differ between males and females. The performance gap, 31 to 37% across the advanced. Okay, it's important to note that not that at all weight categories below the top/open category, performances are produced within weight categories with an upper limit, where strength can be correlated with fighting weight. And we have focused our overall analysis on these categories. Okay. Okay. Yep. Quantifying the gap in performance. Okay. Performance differences in non-elite individuals. Is the male performance advantage lost when testosterone is suppressed in transgender women? The current IOC criteria for inclusion of transgender women in female sport categories. Yep. We already got that. It's reasonable to assume the rationale for the requirement is it reduces or eliminates the male performance advantages described previously, thus permitting fair and safe competition. To describe whether this medical intervention is sufficient to mitigate the male performance advantage, which we describe above, we performed a systematic search of the scientific literature addressing the anthropometric and muscle characteristics of transgender women, search terms and filtering and of peer-reviewed data is given in supplementary table S1. Um, Powerlifting is nice in that it has both hormonally enhanced and not enhanced divisions. Oh, that's really interesting. Why is that though? Wouldn't I thought I was under the impression that hormonally enhanced division would be like uh, a breaking the rules, I guess. Um, Tiefling means I'm trans. Bard means I'm gay. It's facts. True. True. Um, okay. Let's see. Let's take a look at the anthropometrics. Given its importance to the general health of the transgender population, there are multiple studies of bone health and reviews of this data. To summarize, transgender women often have low baseline pre-intervention bone marrow density attributed to low levels of physical activity, especially weight-bearing exercise, and low vitamin D levels. However, transgender women generally maintain bone mass over the course of at least 24 months of testosterone suppression. There may even be a small but significant increase in bone marrow density at the lumbar spine. Some included studies present data pertaining to maintained bone marrow density in transgender women after many years of testosterone suppression. One such study concluded that bone marrow density is preserved over a median of 12.5 years. In support, no increase in fracture rates was observed over 12 months of testosterone suppression. Current advice, including that from the International Society of Clinical Densitometry, is that transgender women, in the absence of other risk factors, do not require monitoring of bone marrow density. Given the maintenance of bone marrow density and the lack of a plausible biological mechanism by which testosterone suppression, open powerlifting is untested and assumed to be hormonally enhanced. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Just out of curiosity, CMA Gruder, are you a power lifter? Yeah, we'll get to this. I mean, whatever. I don't really care about the change in bone marrow density, you know? As discussed earlier, muscle mass and strength are key parameters underpinning male performance advantages. Strength differences range between 30 and 100%, depending on the cohort studied and the task used to assign strength. Used to assess strength. Thus, given the important contribution made by strength to performance, we sought to examine studies that have assessed strength changes after prolonged testosterone reduction. Studies retrieved in our literature search covered both longitudinal and cross-sectional analyses. Given the superior power of the former study type, we will focus on these. The pioneering work by Gurin and colleagues, published in 1999 and in full in 2004, reported the effects of 1 and 3 years of testosterone suppression and estrogen supplementation of 19 transgender women. After the first year of therapy, testosterone levels were reduced to 1 nmol per liter, well within the typical female reference ranges, and remained low throughout the study course. As determined by MRI, thigh muscle area had decreased 9% from baseline measurement. After 3 years, thigh muscle had decreased by a further 3% from baseline measurement, total loss of 12% over 3 years of treatment. However, when compared with the baseline measurement of thigh muscle area in transgender men who are born female and experience female puberty, transgender women retained significantly higher thigh muscle size. The final thigh muscle, after 3 years of testosterone suppression, was 13% larger in trans women than in trans men at baseline. The authors concluded that testosterone suppression in transgender women does not reverse muscle size to female levels. Now, amateur, my issues showed up in cross-country racing many years ago. My dad was kinesiology professor and studied Olympic lifts and powerlifting, though not mostly this area. Well, that's really cool. That's awesome. Do what makes you happy, you know? Since Gurin and Bunk, and by the way, Gurin and Bunk, great study. Hello, Kezbox. We're going through a transphobic study. Probably a transphobic study, as it was written by a transphobe. Um, let's see. Have examined the effects of testosterone suppression on lean body mass or muscle size in transgender women. Okay, so we have 11 longitudinal studies. The collective evidence from these studies suggests that 1 year of testosterone suppression to female typical reference levels results in a modest loss of lean body mass or muscle size. No study has reported muscle loss exceeding 12%, found by Gurin and Bunk after 3 years of therapy. Notable studies have found very consistent changes in lean body mass after 1 year of treatment, where the change has always been between a loss of 3 to 5% on average, with slightly greater reductions in the arm compared with the leg region. Thus, given the large baseline differences in muscle mass between males and females, the reduction achieved by 12 months of testosterone suppression can be reasonably concluded to be small relative to the initial superior mass. We therefore conclude that the muscle mass advantage of males possess over females, and potentially the performance implications thereof, are not removed by 12 months of testosterone suppression. To provide more detailed information on not only gross body composition but also high muscle volume and contractile density, yeah, we're all doing pretty good over here. Check their charts. Oh, I definitely will. Yeah, let's take a look. Table 1. Let's see. We got table 1. Let's see. Quadriceps cross-sectional area decreased by 4 to 5%. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at the data. Do 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 do. All right. All right. Wait. Was this table 1? I don't think this is right. Yeah, no. Wait. Why did they reference table 1? Here we go. Table 4. This is what I was looking for. T suppression plus E supplementation. Okay. Okay. This is from the Gurin and Bunk study. This is without testosterone suppression. Okay. So I'm not entirely sure why they would include this, since they're not suppressing testosterone, which would seem to be something that would throw off their data. Figuera. Let's see. Yeah, this E supplementation with or without. Oh, gotcha. Okay. 31 month, -4. Okay. Gotcha. I respect and treat everyone with kindness, and their identity or pronouns don't bother me, but I think it's audacious to transition and demand you compete with women when there's a reason the genders are separated in the first place. Does this make me transphobic? Cheers. Rip Van Winkle, it might. That's my answer. It might make you transphobic. I think that a lot of the evidence tends to suggest that, like, trans women should participate in sports alongside cis women, and that trans men should participate alongside cis men in sports. Yeah, a lot of the evidence tends to support that position. Um, let's see. Yeah, you know what? At some point, I'll probably get bored and look through all of these studies individually, because I have a feeling that someone who wrote this like utter buffoonery, probably is not writing a research paper in good faith. As for why? Well, because a lot of the research seems to suggest, Rip Van Winkle, that like, um, again, there's not a meaningful difference. Um, yeah, I'm sure the quality will I'm sure the quality will change quite a bit. Yeah, like I found the other meta study to be far more compelling here, but again, I'm only familiar with Guren and Bunk because it was the first one, and it's the one that largely was cited by pretty much everyone, though. Uh, okay, I have to look at some of these study. Wait. Oh, okay. Here we go. Uh, Okay. Wait, did I? Yeah, I read this study. Okay. Yep. We looked at this study, which was inconclusive. We did not look at this one. Skeletal muscle radiation attenuation on the basis of biological variation. Okay. Um, yeah, we don't. I don't really disagree with the bone stuff. I feel like it's largely on point when it comes to bones, and I'm gonna just give it the benefit of the doubt when it comes to like the difference between like men and women when it comes to sporting achievement, I guess. Um, I do think that one of like the failures of this study, though, of this sort of analysis here. Sorry, where where was the table I was looking at? Um, there we go. One of the failures of this study, and especially the meta in general with this study that I'm noticing, is that like I can at least speak for Guren and Bunk. Guren and Bunk wasn't examining like athletes. It was just examining trans women in general, trans women and trans men, and evaluating the changes um, based on like uh, based on their like changes. I think Gurren and Bunk is a pretty good faith study, you know? So that's my position. As for some of these, Haroldson et al. 2007, I do find it weird that none of these were included in the overview of literature that I'm familiar with from, it was, yeah. None of them are cited in this study, which was published in 2016, um, despite the fact that, like, yeah, this is a systemic review. This is a systemic review of the existing literature. So I'm finding it weird that a review of the literature in 2016 didn't use a lot of these studies from like 2015, 2014, 2011, 2007. You know, I'm finding that a bit strange. This entire study is basically garbage due to the purposeful leaving out of necessary information, IMO. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm getting that. I'm just like, I'm trying to get through it too and just like see what I think of it, you know? I think that a lot of this is pretty I think maybe these individual studies have more have more to say if I were to actually read them. Um, but I also don't want to make you all sit and watch for like an hour while I go look up these individual studies. Um, why not just let men compete against women? Well, because men tend like cis men tend to outperform cis women. That's why. Like by a significant margin. The issue is that a lot of transphobes, well, a lot of parents care. That's basically it, right? Like a lot of kids don't want to see their precious baby. Um, but like yeah, like I don't know. I think it's fine to have like a relatively fair playing field, you know. Um, but I don't like there are tons of different advantages within cis groups, so it's kind of weird to me. I guess to be like saying, well, the trans women might have a small advantage, so they're like we can't let them compete. Well, okay, but cis women within a group of cis women also have advantages when it comes to sports. So again, like it's one of those things where like Johnny Mills, you're correct on like some of it at least, you know. Um. Oh, by the way, Rip Van Winkle, the fighter that you're talking about, Fallon Fox, she's 5-1, so she has 5 wins and 1 loss, which is a pretty normal record for a fighter to have. She did really well in a few of her matches, and that led to some of her opponents like really leaning into the transphobic shit. But like she's not like an unbeatable god compared to the women in her league. Um, like she lost a fight. Like she wasn't like Muhammad Ali fighting someone below his weight class, you know? She's just a really fucking good fighter. I'm a cis person who had a record eliminated because parents complained and accused my dad of giving me steroids. Dang, I'm sorry. Um, anyway, let's take a look at the perspectives of this piece. We've shown testosterone suppression regimes commonly required by sports federation to permit inclusion of transgender women in female sports categories, evidence for loss of male performance advantage established by testosterone at puberty, and translating to in elite athletes to 10% to 50% performance advantage is lacking. Rather, the data shows that the physical advantages enjoyed by biological males over females is only minimally reduced when testosterone is suppressed as per current and historical policies. Furthermore, the reductions observed in muscle mass, size, and strength are very small compared to the baseline differences between males and females in these variables. These these data significantly undermine the intent of these policies, particularly given the stated prioritization of fairness as an overriding objective, as per IOC policy. This is why we are suggesting, oh my goodness, sourcing support. Thank you very much for the 6 month subscription at Tier 1. I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. Um, fantastic. Thank you. Um, And by the way, if anyone new here wants to check out our Discord, please swing by the community. We post a lot of pictures of cute pets. We have a nice little place where people can vent their feelings and find some support. We have a place where I post links to a bunch of the studies that I go over on channel and a lot of the sources that I use, so you guys can look at them too. And yeah. If there's a trans woman who looks very much like a dude and is strong as fuck, would they want to compete against women? Many of the best female athletes want to compete against men. I mean, I think trans women tend to just want to compete against women because they're women. I think that's basically what it boils down to, no? Um, Scribbles hearts. If flattening your chest will definitely make you feel better, then I support you wholeheartedly. Um, yeah, you could try. You could try it. Definitely, binding can be more effective at alleviating your feelings. And if it does feel really good, maybe a surgical option is preferable to you. You know. Um, let's see. Medical ethical point of view, it may be questioned as to whether a requirement for lower testosterone below a certain level to ensure sporting participation can be justified at all. If the advantage persists to a large degree, as evidence suggests, then a stated objective of targeting a certain testosterone level to be eligible will not achieve this objective and may drive medical practice that an individual may not want or require without achieving its intended benefit. The research conducted so far has studied untrained transgender women. Thus, while this research is important to understand the isolated effects of testosterone suppression, it is still uncertain how transgender women athletes, perhaps undergoing advanced training regimens, during therapy would respond. It is also important to recognize that performance is almost in most sports may be influenced by factors outside muscle mass and strength. Thus, there is certainly a need for more focused research on this subject, including more comprehensive performance tests in transgender athletes. I agree! Moreover, since inclusiveness and fairness must be balanced against the athlete's safety, proper risk assessment should be conducted within respective sport. If transgender women remain, either with restriction or in full, excluded from the female category of sport, important question is whether or not this exclusion or conditional exclusion is necessary and proportionate to the goal of ensuring fair, safe, and meaningful competition. Regardless of what the future will bring in terms of revised gender policies, it is obvious that different sports differ vastly from each other in terms of physiological determinants of success, which then create safety considerations and may alter the importance or magnitude of performance advantages. Thus, one could certainly argue against universal transgender guidelines in sport and instead propose that each individual sports federation should evaluate their own conditions for inclusivity, fairness, and safety. So, yeah. Um, I mean, no, I mean Johnny Mills, Joe Rogan is transphobic. Though I do think that generally, if I got on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think I could convince him to not be transphobic, at least until his next guest. You know, shouldn't be beating up on the women like that. It's like, bruh, not all trans women are biomechanically women. Gender is one thing, biomechanics is another. No, yeah, Joe Rogan is extremely transphobic in a lot of cases. Um, and like, yeah, I think that this study is largely a lot of bullshit. Like even giving it like, oh, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt here. Also, Johan Bone, welcome to the community. Thank you for participating. I haven't seen you in chat before, and I hope you have a great time while you're here. Yeah, I mean, like, Archangel the Cop, that's partly what I mean when I say, like, I think if I got into a room with Joe Rogan, I could get him to be, like, not a transphobe for, like, until his next recording session, you know? Um, Massive gamer here. Dang, you almost gave me a heart attack there. I mean, the problem with the debate is that sports are dumb. We're trying to argue that something inherently unfair is supposed to be fair. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, yeah, that is part of it. It was a good troll. I was genuine. Like, I've never been banned before. I don't know what the message that pops up on on your chat is. You know, it's like, how did I get banned from my own channel? All right. But yeah, like I just think that there's an extremely good argument to be made here. Like, If you guys weren't here for when I went through this article, it's absolutely baffling. T Sasquatch? What's the title referring to? That trans women should be able to compete against cis women in sports. I keep getting asked about this like topic, or I keep getting people coming in to like talk about it. And I'm just like, yeah, no, they should be. A lot of the studies we've gone over tonight have been in favor of transgender women competing alongside cisgender women, and the rest have all been saying, yeah, we need more data. And you know what? Even this study, written by a transphobe, largely comes down to the idea that, yeah, we need more studies to be done. Because all of the studies are on untrained transgender women, and also the population sizes in these studies are obscenely small. Wait, why are... well, you missed this part, but the author of this study also wrote a piece in the Wall Street Journal called The Dangerous Denial of Sex, where she basically just lied about gender identity and sex, like biological sex. Like, literally, like, all, like, I cannot stress to you guys enough. Here, I will copy it and I will put it in... This chat is now in cute mode. Aww. It's true. This chat is always in cute mode, though. If you guys click on this, article, the entire article is just bullshit. Like, again, I'm gonna point this out. Like from the get go, transgender ideology can take on a comical character, as in a recent ACLU commentary objecting to sales tax on tampons and similar products while pondering how can we recognize that barriers to menstrual access are a form of sex discrimination without erasing the lived experiences of trans men and non-binary people who menstruate, as well as women who don't. Because here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. Trans men need tampons sometimes, and not all women menstruate. So to this person, the idea that trans men menstruate is funny. So that's where we're starting off from, okay? Also, the air quotes around yeah, trans men need tampons. They menstruate. They menstruate, my dude. Non-binary people, too. Some non-binary people menstruate. And a lot of women don't menstruate. Yeah. And, like, also, it just kind of mocks the idea that you can identify as a gender. And basically cites a bunch of articles right here. How do trans men have uteruses? Yeah. What? I think you're not understanding the difference between trans women and trans men, my dude. Good, very good troll. Very good troll. Yeah, not every trans man gets a gets a hysterectomy. Johnny Mills, what the fuck you doing? Not the subject to Josh about today. We've already gotten too many bad faith people. Gosh. Some of these people are like like I don't get it. Like just be nice. Like you can disagree. You can disagree with my positions. You don't have to be like a dick about it. I don't get it. I mean, yeah, I think Johnny Mills was also a tanky. He's messaging me telling me he wasn't trolling or trying to be mean. I think he might just be an idiot, guys. I think he might just be dumb. If he sends you an unban request, you can unban him. I messed up by trans men. I thought men who became women. Nope, that's not. I'm gonna unban Johnny Mills. I I think it's fine. Well, wait, can somebody else do it? Because I don't have mod chat open right now. But like, I want to be able to explain this issue to people. Please, there we go. T Sasquatch, I give you permission to ask any questions you would like, even if they are deemed offensive. No one will ban you, okay? By the way, I'm not offended. My mods are just very protective. Um, because Johnny Mills, it seemed like you were having like a very dumb troll, and that my mods assumed that you were being a dick. But like, yeah, trans women don't have uteruses. Trans men do have uteruses, and they menstruate. Um, except y'all get massive amounts of trolling. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. Oh, okay, bye Johnny Mills. I guess I unbanned you so you could learn, but that's okay. Bye. Anyway. Anyway, I guess I don't have to go through this again if Johnny Mills isn't here. But yeah, basically this person just conflates gender and sex to make their opposition to these positions dumb or seem dumb. Um, but like, yeah, it's a bad argument, and it's the kind of argument a transphobe would make. And hey, maybe people shouldn't be transphobic. Maybe that's a thought, you know? All right. Let's see. If there's a significant advantage for trans women in sports, what do we do? Could we institute weight classes or something? Honestly, Johan Bone, I think that might be like a really good idea. Like I think that would be a great way of addressing like addressing especially when it comes to non-binary people. I think that would be a great way of addressing it. Having different weight classes would be, I think, a perfect way to do this. But I'm also not super. I'm not super clear. You know, like it's a difficult question, and I'm not sure that there's an easy answer to it. But I would say that weight classes would probably be like a relatively fair way of doing it.